Hello guys, today I have a very special episode for you. It's with my best friend, Энтони Glynn. Энтони is a screenwriter, filmmaker, we met in college, we worked on a lot of films together, and he was also a huge influence on my adaptation period to the American life. This whole episode is basically about us talking about movies non-stop. It's a really long one, but if you like films, I think you're gonna like it. I also want to thank you guys for supporting the podcast. Each view, each like counts. I started very recently, but all the response and feedback has been very positive. Thank you very much. Please, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. That would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Relax.
So what? Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Why do we not like Todd Phillips? What do we
He's
notice
a
about
fucking-
Joker?
I think he's a fraud. You know, I think he's like, just be yourself, man. Like he's like, I think what he saw was, okay, here's an opportunity to work with Scorsese, make the Scorsese film I always wanted to make. It's obviously going to make money. It's Joker. You know, it could have been anything. As long as it's a superhero thing, it's going to make money. And then, you know, he just remade movies that he liked, and there's very few things in the movie that are really like, all right, just what do you think, man? Like what's your thing? Like I studied this shit. I fucking know it already. Like, and we all could do that because we love homage. We love stuff. So it's like almost like I'm criticizing myself, but like, dude, like you went too far, and then you're trying to be like things are deep, and they're not deep, like at all. Like it's kind of, it's very surface layer when you kind of break it down. For me, you know, it's like I knew things that were going to happen in the movie, whatever, that's fine, but it's very surface layer. It's not deep, and I think it's the way it's shot and it's presented, and it's supposed to be like this deep film, and this is how superhero films are supposed to be made, and it's like, guys, like you're this is a trick. Like it's not anything more than what you think when you walk outside the theater for 5 minutes. Like, that's it. You know, he's not doing anything different. That's what I think.
Speaking of superhero movies, you've written an essay that hasn't been published.
I've yet to
or
publish.
anything.
Yeah,
Yes, but you wrote it, and I read it.
Yeah.
And you make a case for superhero movies.
Yeah.
Particularly, you address Martin Scorsese's comments about superheroes movies not being cinema.
Yeah.
What's your thesis? Let's talk about it.
My thesis is that they're genre hybrid films, okay? You know, they all play with genre a little bit, and I study genre. That's like my thing, you know, film theory. And we're criticizing a cycle. That's really what we're doing. You know, that's what Scorsese's doing, and maybe it's ruining the industry, let's say, right? Like, because the cycle is so big and it's making all the budgets inflated, and I mean, I could agree with that, but it's not criticizing the film. There is good stuff in these films, like, and good stuff is just like what moves you. You know, it moves me. You know, and when you read my script, my essay, you were moved. You know, you thought back to things that you never would have thought back to, and I'm not making this up. You literally said it to me, like. There are moving things that you do with music, you do with the shots. You don't even have to do anything that creative. It's just being real. And I guess it's just one of those things. It's kind of like, what is the thing? I can't think right now. I'm drinking. What is the thing when Uncanny Valley?
Okay, yeah.
Right? So like with Todd Phillips, you could just, we have this uncanny thing where we know you're being fake. Like this is fake. But I get more moved by watching a CGI raccoon cry at the end of a film because it's more ballsy. Like, let's end the film like with like he's a character, he's a person, and I'm moved by that. Like let's just be real. Like, it doesn't matter if it's sappy, it doesn't matter if like we've seen it before. This is what James Gunn wanted to show, and he's not apologizing for that, and I'm moved by that. Like, you know, I still watch Forrest Gump and get moved by it. Like, it is what it is. Like, it's not trying, like, Joker's trying hard to be what it is. Guardians of the Galaxy isn't. You know, Captain America Winter Soldier, it's trying to be a spy thriller. It achieves that completely. Like, it's not trying to be anything more than what it is. It's a generic hybrid. It's combining the superhero genre, which is the status quo being altered, with, a Robert Redford film from the 70s. It achieves it perfectly. Why can I not enjoy this? What it does to the industry is a different question. That's unfortunate. That I could agree with. That I think we need to change. I think all these films should be under $100 million. I think they all should be made for what Joker was made for. I think they could achieve it. I really think they could achieve it. But as films, I think they're very good. I mean, like Marvel is like, it's almost like Pixar. Like it doesn't miss. It's had a few, like Pixar. I'm gonna say this wrong. I'm not gonna actually say it. I'm not gonna go there because then people are gonna be like, I'm wrong. But there's a few films here or there that are like, But as a whole, it's pretty great. The same thing with Marvel. There's like 3 or 4 films that you're like, whatever. They're good. And I was also relating it to like Marvel isn't the first to do the cinematic universe. This isn't like a new thing, guys. Relax. They've been doing this since movies weren't fucking invented. Like with the Universal monsters, the wolf, the Wolfman, Frankenstein. They even combined Abbott and Costello.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done this. This is not like guys. Marvel did the new thing. No, they didn't. So. I just think it's a cycle, and it's a cycle that we're in. I mean, like, look, horror has been in a cycle since film has been incepted. Westerns died out. I love Westerns. They died out. Westerns come out, they're like old remakes or like trying to be what they used to be. Superhero movies are the thing right now. Mm-hmm. That's more of a comment on pop culture and contemporary values, other than the films themselves. That's what I think.
Yeah, you hear a lot about like propaganda in those films nowadays.
Yeah.
From everywhere.
Yeah.
What does that mean? You know these movies better than I do. So just like I'm throwing it out there as though I don't want to talk about like kind of the deeper meaning or what it means to the zeitgeist, because you just know them better.
What's your question exactly? I'm sorry.
My question is, what does it mean when people say there's propaganda in these movies, and is it a valid comment?
I think that there are. But that's like in almost every film now. Like major films that have to be pushed into other regions. China's a big market, and they're trying to push movies into that. It's going to make big money. There are contemporary values that are pushed into these films that not everybody agrees with, and they're there. But
so it's all marketing, basically, based on.
I think it's a way of trying to be current and market the films a certain way, which I disagree with, and I don't think they always work. I think it's better to just be honest. It's more moving when you're just saying what you want to say. Rather than throwing arbitrary social commentary. Mm-hmm. Unless you have really something to say, but I mean. I just see it at surface level. I don't always see it coming from a real place. I see it almost like manufactured or like a company HR kind of thing. Like, let's just throw this in there and market the film that way. But if you get past that, there are real things, and there's real emotion. And I think that's where the real film comes from. It's not always about commentary. It's about human interaction and how you relate to that. And it doesn't matter if it's a talking raccoon. You could still relate to it.
Yeah, well, for sure. I think that's like, I remember when I was teaching to kids school. So one of our projects, I don't know if I ever showed you, but I used to, that was one of my first lessons, is that you don't need a character to make a movie. No, you need a character. You don't need a person,
right,
to make a movie. And we made films with what do you call this little metal piece that holds
staples?
Not staple, the other one, but you use it for the same
Paperclip.
Paperclip, yeah. So we used to make films, and the main character on the film is a paperclip.
Yeah.
So
And of course you could do it.
exactly, and we just made like a little stop motion thing where paperclip gets overruled by a bigger paperclip, like a metal piece, and they have a fight, and and then stapler comes and and they become friends. Like so,
Yeah.
and kids would come up with it themselves, but you kind of push them in that direction, they get it. You actually can feel bad for a paperclip,
course.
and you can have real emotions to this.
That's our job.
Exactly. So every time I hear somebody says that, oh, it's a movie about raccoon, what was stupid? Like it's like, yeah.
You also, here's another thing, is that you don't necessarily have to like the protagonist. You have to understand the protagonist. That's the thing I think that people we know are trying to do a lot, is that you could add things in, but if it's honest, you can make a film about somebody that's unlikable. You have to understand. You have to empathize with the character.
Difference between empathizing and sympathizing.
Correct. Yes, and I think that's something that a lot of people are always trying to do, and I just walk away from it. It is what it is. This is the film I'm making. You don't have to like them. I mean, if you make a film about a paperclip, you can't understand. You're not a paperclip, so. But you could empathize with whatever it's doing. You could put yourself in its shoes. It's got to fucking move across the table. Whatever it is.
Everything you just said reminds me of works of one of our favorite filmmaker of all time is William Friedkin.
Oh yeah.
He talks a lot about. I was mentioning to you. I listened to a lot of him like talking in general.
Mm-hmm.
He has a fantastic podcast with Mark Maron on WTF. It's like about 2 hours, and he's just the kind of guy who likes telling his stories now, and he does it very entertainingly, which kind of, you could right away see that he's a good storyteller.
Yeah.
He wants to share these stories. He's excited about sharing them. He's funny. He has he almost like comedian. When you listen to him talk, he has like he sets something up, comes up with it later. But he talks a lot about kind of working with characters that are not good people.
Yeah.
You watch films like French Connection.
Yeah.
We are rooting for the
Popeye,
cop,
Popeye Doyle.
Popeye Doyle,
Yeah, who's an unlikable man.
He's sexist, racist. Put anything on him, kind of like this crude guy. He does
He's a
the
good
job
character.
done. Yeah, he's a good character.
He's a good character.
Yeah. And we contrasted with the villain, who is this French guy who treats his girlfriend, wife, whatever, with such respect and gets her flowers and eats sophisticated food, but he's a drug dealer, right?
Well, that's like Heat.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
With like Al Pacino,
Right,
like has a messed up fucking life.
Yeah.
But he's the good guy in
Right,
the situation. And
right.
De Niro is very like regimented and yeah.
Yeah, he does exactly that, and I feel like French Connection might be the first ones who really did it in that way. And then you watch like Sorcerer, a movie.
Well, it's all New Hollywood. New Hollywood really
right.
like Tarantino talks about this stuff. Like, it's like New Hollywood really opened the gates of the 60s and just said, okay, we could just make stories about whatever the fuck we want. We don't have to appear to a code or anything like that. And then it kind of faded out a little bit in the 80s.
Yeah.
But those 70s, the 70s was just like, holy shit. Like the heyday of good movies, and the French Connection is what, 70, 71?
Yeah.
Right? It's the seminal film of that.
It's kind of like started that the 70s, and it won like 5 Oscars, including Best Directing and I think Best Film. It really was like a great start for the 70s.
It's like a seminal film of the 70s. I mean, the 70s is just like, when you look at the Oscars of the 70s, every year it's like 6 good films. Like, you're like, oh, anyone could have won.
Yeah.
It's not like it is now, but that's a different conversation.
But you like Green Book?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, it was all right. But it's not like the 70s, when you're like, oh, like Rocky won, but it could have been, the other. It's like there's so many good films.
Yeah.
And it just comes from like pure auteurism, just making the films you want to make.
Which is funny. Friedkin doesn't believe in author's
That's funny.
theory. he's very into kind of it's just collaboration. I was just
He's straightforward guy.
straightforward guy. I love his
No pretension.
no pretension. I like his bit on Blu-rays, and he's very like into overseeing the process of his movies becoming on Blu-ray. And he has this funny story where Tarantino often asks Friedkin if he can show a 35 millimeter of like The Exorcist in Tarantino's movie theater. And Friedkin says, no problem, as far as I don't have to go see that shit on 35 millimeter. So he says it looks terrible. And then Mark Maron would be like, oh, but don't you think there's something like, don't you romanticize that idea how it's done? He said, no, it looks like crap. That's not what I intended in my head. I never wanted those lines and that noise and all the scratches. That all it comes from the film, from the guy messing it up so many times. Like he actually and the stitches, they suck. That's not what I had in my head.
That's when we go back to Todd Phillips.
Right.
Like he's almost like in our school in a way, and like we romanticize these things, and like Friedkin lived it,
Right.
Carpenter lived it, and he's over it. It is what it is.
Right.
I didn't want it to look like that. I wish it was made now. I can make it the way I want to make it.
Yeah. Exactly. They had to work with these constraints. They wish they had these cameras available to them.
Yeah.
Then they would have made more films probably.
Right.
But let's talk about our favorite movie, one of our favorite films ever. Since we're talking about Friedkin, let's get this out of the way.
The Exorcist.
The Exorcist.
Yeah.
So why is The Exorcist one of the best movies ever made? Go.
The Exorcist is one of the best movies ever made because it's a genuine drama, I think, in the cycle of horror. It's legitimately horror, scary film, but it's also not a horror film. I think it's very much just a drama about a family who has to deal with a crisis, and most of the film is the build up to that. It's not. If it was made now, in the first 5 seconds, there would be, Reagan would have turned. I just watched Conjuring 2. And I like Conjuring, but I just watched Conjuring 2. In the first 5 minutes, they're doing Amityville Horror, and then they cut to England, and the girl's fucking floating in the room, and they're doing all these, almost like little bits, like horror and comedy are very similar, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're doing bits, immediately, because we all have ADD or something, and they have to just capture our attention. At least that's what they think. And the first fucking hour of The Exorcist is just, the horrors of the medical system.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's a legit drama. On par with the dramas of the 70s. It's not trying too hard to be a horror film. And in that, it achieves being probably the best horror film, with what scares us the most, which is right there. It's just whatever's right there. Not trying too hard, not none of that stupid shit that I fucking hate. When they just show the face, or they show that terror is right underneath us, and there's subtext. I mean, it's not like Todd Phillips. There's a lot going on. You could read The Exorcist in a lot of different ways. I still come up with different ways. People are writing essays about The Exorcist now.
Yeah.
And I just rewatched it recently because I watch it, a lot. And all that build up, all that drama, all that character work, and understanding.
Pimienta.
Can I talk, please? No, not you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
She loves you, man.
Thank you.
So silly. She wants
my
some
girlfriend.
Drink. You want some more?
Yeah, let's do some more. Okay, baby. Okay. Sit. Talking about The Exorcist, please. I don't know if I answered your question, but I think that's the main crux, is that it's a legit good movie, which is you're like, why is it a good movie? I'm giving you the definition that it's a legit good movie. That's a stupid fucking answer. I went to college. some of our favorite scenes are just like with Karras, you know, when he talks with Lee J. Cobb,
yeah.
you know, and you understand who these people are. And like, I was watching it recently. So Lee J. Cobb's only in the movie for like 14 minutes or something. He's like barely in the movie.
Yeah.
You know, he's like got like 3 scenes in the movie, but you know who he is, you know, like you get it. And, you know, there'll be movies that like will have the main character on the screen for 120 minutes and you're like, what?
Yeah, why is this guy there? Yeah.
Yeah. I think handling it like that was really good. But I think also the subtext. There was a lot of subtext in the 70s. There was a lot of stuff you could read into the film, and that adds to it. It adds to the more than just the 5 minutes walking to the car after the film's done, which is basically the whole conversation of Joker. Like you walk to the car, you've discussed Joker. The Exorcist has been out for almost 50 years. We can still talk about it today because there's just ways to read this film that I think maybe go beyond Friedkin. Maybe he wasn't even intending it.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. I agree with you. I definitely, think that the main, if I had to say one thing, is I love the film because it treats itself as a drama and never as a horror film. And I think that's the kind of core success of the film, of the story, the way it was made. I'm gonna quote, I guess, Friedkin all night tonight, but the funny thing he says is that I never thought of it. He literally says that, actually, even though me and you kind of known this, but he actually says it, that we just wanted to make a drama.
Yeah.
But he says, but apparently it's a horror movie.
Yeah, exactly.
He's actually like surprised that everybody treats this as a horror film. It's a Halloween. Every Halloween there's a new iteration of it, or release of the new Blu-ray with whatever. He says apparently it's a horror movie, so I was wrong. He does that. It's really funny.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
You know, that's what we were trained to do, is to understand filmmakers, to be able to read films, and almost like understand people. You know, there's an extension to that. You know.
Yeah.
And The Exorcist. I'm not surprised that he said that it's just a drama.
I told you recently that I realized that I'm not as interested in third act.
Yes. Yeah.
It's so strange. I kind of, once I noticed it, and I notice it all the time now.
Yeah.
And I told it to you, but somehow like first, second act, especially first act.
But remember we were talking not that long ago, and how I don't like how like end beats. Like I don't like, a lot of times I don't like how like a movie ends necessarily. Remember I was complaining about like Harry Potter, and I was complaining about like So I kind of get it. I don't know if there's like a word for it. You know, I definitely think a movie is a sum of its parts. So I don't necessarily fit into your category, but I do
understand.
Sometimes I'm just like, I would have ended it differently. You know, obviously I have the benefit of hindsight, but I'm like, The Exorcist I think ends amazingly.
Yeah, I love how it ends, but my thing is that it's the least interesting part to me.
I get it. Yeah.
Once they get to the exorcism, I'm like, okay, the movie's over.
Yeah,
I'm just ready to kind of finish it up.
Yeah.
To me, it's not a climax; it's an epilogue.
It's almost like we have to get here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that I love about the film is the irony of Father Karras is a priest who lost faith.
Yeah.
Has to regain it. Has to perform an exorcism to a family. Who is asked by a woman who is an atheist, but whose last resort is God.
Well, there's 2 good questions I have right here. I'm gonna interview you or whatever, right? Okay. So the 2 things I noticed is like, one, who is the protagonist of The Exorcist, right? Like, is it
Karras or the
what's her name? What the fuck is her name in the movie?
I don't remember.
I just fucking watched it the other day.
Our favorite movie.
I know, right? Okay, whatever. Okay.
Raccoon.
Ellen Burst.
Yeah.
Her, or is it Karras? And the thing that I was talking about in my Marvel essay, the thing that moves me the most is like those character beats that are like, if you say them in one sentence, you're like, okay, sure, that happens in life, that happens in a character, I can understand that. But like, Father Karras is a man who's depressed literally the entire film. Okay. You know, he loses his mother. He's upset. Every single scene he's like, I gotta get out of this. I don't belong. I'm not good for this. I'm not good. You know, he's just trying to jog his way out of this. You know, he's fucking depressed. Just like, let me just exercise. And he's the one who eventually realizes that, you know, his faith is
presented with an opportunity.
With an opportunity, but which is what a protagonist gets, right?
Exactly,
Okay.
Yeah.
But he also one of the most emotional moments for me, and I fucking love this scene, is when he's the first time he meets her, okay, and she does, you got some money from old altar boy, father, and then he says his mother, and he leaves, and he goes, did you know my mother died recently? And she goes, yeah, I'm sorry. No, did Reagan know? And she goes, no. Did you know a priest was coming? No. It's not important. And he walks away. And I turned to my mother. I was watching the film with my mother. I'm like, Karis realizes that faith is real. Like and she goes, why is it not? She goes, why is it not important? And I'm like, because he's scared. That's a human reaction. Like there's a real like emotional moment there. Like he realized, wait a second.
Yeah, I never paid attention this much to that moment, but that's very interesting.
I watched it 75 fucking times, but this one moment, I was like, oh, in this moment, he's so... It's like when you're presented with a real problem in real life, you kind of avoid it for a second. You're like, I don't want to fucking face that.
Right.
And he goes, faith is real. Like, wait a second. Maybe, and then every scene after that, he's like fucking breaking the Eucharist, and he's doing priest stuff, and he's like... he has to go back because he's realizing, oh, this is my purpose almost. Like I realize that faith is real, and I could do something about this. And then when he asks the archbishop, for like the exorcism, he goes, would you like to do it? And he goes, I would, I would like to, because he wants to almost like fulfill something in himself, It's very moving. That's like that. Like that's not even the exorcism. That's just like a character moment, and he's played so well. It's so moving.
Jason Miller's first role.
Oh my god.
I think he only did like theater or something.
Yeah, he was a playwright as well.
Right, playwright. You're right. Yes.
Yep.
What a performance! And you know who wanted that role? Roy Scheider, and he got mad a little bit.
Really?
At Friedkin. Yeah, Roy Scheider really wanted that role. Studio would have been fine with him because he was just...
he was big.
No, he wasn't in Jaws yet.
No, he wasn't in Jaws yet, but he was still big.
He was still big, but not as big, and definitely bigger than Jason Miller.
Yeah.
But
Jason Miller was nobody. He was a theater actor.
Yeah, but I think Friedkin just thought it's not his role.
Jason Miller was perfect for that role.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I wish he was in more things.
And I wish he wasn't. He passed away, unfortunately, early, right?
He did.
Like in the 80s.
I think he was an alcoholic,
90s.
too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was in Scranton. He was by the
Really?
office. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. That was there's actually, do you ever go to Scranton? I want to go. Mm-hmm. There's a bust of him in some park or something. Yeah, there's a bust of him because he was a famous playwright.
Yeah.
And they put a bust of him like his statue.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I would love to go. And Ellen Burst also wasn't the first choice. They wanted Audrey Hepburn.
Okay.
Who said, I would do it, but she just married like Italian guy. She was like, we got to do it in Italy.
Yeah.
They're like, no. Can you come? Like, she's like, well, I'm not going to do it then. It's like, all right, fuck off. And then they wanted Jane Fonda.
Okay.
And, but then Ellen Burst really wanted this role. She read the screenplay somewhere. Yeah. And she contacted Friedkin. She was like, this is me. Like, I really want to do this. Anyway, after long, works with producers and, kind of complaining, and she finally did it, and she's phenomenal in it. And I think that's her. She got an Oscar or nomination.
She got definitely a nomination.
Definitely a nomination.
I don't know if she got an Oscar.
Yeah, she was amazing.
I don't know if did the film actually win?
Best screenplay.
Okay, yeah, because I know it was nominated. It's one of those horror films that.
Yeah, it's the only horror film ever
to be Best Picture.
Best Picture, nominated for Best Picture.
And it lost to The Sting. Because it's 73.
Oh, which movie won then?
The Sting.
The Sting? Which one?
With Paul Newman.
Oh, Paul. Right. Okay, I've never seen it.
Anybody tell you look like Paul Newman?
Yeah, that's funny. What else was amazing in that movie? Here's another thing. I saw a documentary on The Exorcist. It's on Shudder actually, and Friedkin.
You told me about it. I didn't watch it yet. Yeah,
it's really good.
We can watch it later. Right?
Yeah, we can watch it. Yeah, I would love to. The cool thing that I never know, again, you watch it so many times and you find new things for yourself. The opening line of the movie is Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. We hear the pray, which means God is great, God is beautiful.
You know what's cool about that's amazing.
I mean, that's phenomenal. I never thought of that, but I think that the irony is just constant.
You know what's great about the 70s is that everything's really subtle because I don't even know if it's like on purpose. I think it's just because they were just like almost guerrilla, like let's just make whatever we want.
Yeah, probably.
You know? But like, if it was made today, it would have been like fucking punching you in the face with it.
Yeah.
But like the arch rivalry between Marin and Pazuzu.
Oh yeah, that's
like
insane.
like when they fucking stand at the beginning and like today that would have been like Pazuzu is like a superhero villain. You know what I mean? Like they would have really built it up. But like when he's just looking at the statue, it's like
it would have been like a Suicide Squad villain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like they would have
with
saved
Will Smith.
Pazuzu for the next film.
And Will Smith would have been Marin.
Yeah. That's what
You are evil.
Joel Kinnaman would have
Yeah. Imagine.
Can you stop? I love you.
Every time you laugh and you like make some motion, she thinks you're talking to her.
I love you, but
Oh
this
my
is for
goodness.
later. Okay. We're doing The Exorcist for like an hour here. Can we just finish The Exorcist and then we can hang out?
Well, she's possessed for sure.
Yeah, by Baphomet or Beelzebub.
Beelzebub, yeah.
She doesn't say that she's a demon. She says that she's the devil herself. What was a funny moment is that my mom, watched The Exorcist when it came out. She was a little girl, and then she watched it again when she was a little bit older, younger than us, but older. And she never watched the director's cut. Oh. So I have the director's cut. And it has the moment when she goes, and she comes down the stairs. And my mom was like,
oh, wow.
She really, was scared for a moment. And it was like, I never saw my mom like that. It was just like a weird moment.
Yeah, that's a interesting thing. I love and hate the director's cut, the one that came out like late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
The reason I don't like it doesn't open with the sunset.
Yeah.
It opens with the house.
Yeah. It does.
It's very weird. It's almost like, hey, it's a filler.
Well, it's like two different locations, so it's kind of almost like breaks film trope. Like it was like let's introduce one thing and then we introduce another thing.
I just love the cold opening with the sunset in the original version. But I absolutely love one of the greatest jump scares in film.
The stairs.
It's the stairs.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
I think it works so
The stairs
well.
should have just been in the movie, honestly.
It should have been
I don't
in
know
the
why
movie,
it wasn't in the movie. It was like, why is this
I
the
thought it was
director's
too
cut?
comical or something. Like, I don't understand. That's what the original criticism was. It looked too comical.
It's 18 seconds. Like, it's like literally nothing. Like, just put in the fucking movie.
No, they really thought. I think the version I've heard is producers were like, it just looks funny, and they didn't buy it. And I'm like, what? Like, how is this possible?
It's legitimately scary to this day.
Yeah.
And I just have a testament to it. My mother was like,
everybody. I always wait for that moment. It's when Burke dies.
Yes.
It's right there. She opens and she goes to the sky. And then you hear, and this like the violins go in, and it's very scary. It shocks you, and that's like anything running at you really fast. And it's not even at you. It's just that profile shot.
You know, it's a good line when the not Nazi older guy. He comes up the stairs and he goes, "It wants no straps."
Oh yeah.
I like that line.
Yes,
I like that line.
Yeah, he doesn't call it her.
Yeah, he goes, it wants no straps.
Yeah, I agree.
I like that line.
Yeah,
that's a good line.
I also don't like. There's some effects that are like juxtaposed on her, like overlaid onto her face. I'm not crazy about those effects, but I do love the Pazuzu face.
Yeah. That's, you know who that is? That actually is
the actress.
The woman, yeah.
Exactly, the woman who played, I love those.
Yeah.
And that trick, another thing to add, I absolutely love the dream sequence. When he sees his mom, it's freaky, it's trippy.
But it's subtle.
It's very subtle. It's very subtle. We see that... There's some imagery that it doesn't really make sense, but we see that thing, the symbol flying on the floor, that little
his necklace thing.
But it's not his. Where we see it is in the beginning of the movie with Marin and that other guy who was there with. That guy holds that item. It's not connected to Karras at all. There's no way he should have seen it in his dream.
Right.
Which is very strange.
Right. Well, that's why I asked you earlier. Like, who's the protagonist of this movie? Also, because like it's like kind of dual protagonist. It's like Karras is also the protagonist. He's experiencing this as well.
Right,
You know,
right.
like he aside from Ellen Burstyn and Reagan, you know, he's experiencing this.
Right, absolutely.
And he's almost like destiny. Like he has to go to this, you know?
Yeah. And I love the fact that there's no, like, it's not, there's no sound effects or music. It's not, the sound of the dream is kind of him sleeping.
Right. It's like quiet.
Exactly.
It's almost like no sound.
It's a little eerie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another movie that I think the best for me dream sequence is actually from Rosemary's Baby.
Oh yeah.
Those dream sequences, like you just hear the night and the clock.
Yeah.
And I always feel like that's like perfect reincarnation of like dreams.
You know, how do you show dreams? And like movies don't always show it the right way. And it's almost like images.
Yeah.
You know, and that you remember images. You know.
Yeah, those movies like really nail it. And I know you're not the biggest fan of Rosemary's Baby, but that's like another movie that makes me cry every single time.
I appreciate
Rosemary's Baby.
I appreciate Rosemary's Baby. It's not like The Exorcist, like where like if you were like you want to watch The Exorcist and I just watched it 4 days ago, like be like yeah, let's watch it. You know, like I literally enjoy watching it. Rosemary's Baby, I don't enjoy as much.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But you know what I like in Rosemary's Baby, and I just like him in general. I think this is just a bias. Is John Cassavetes?
John Cassavetes is amazing.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy about Mia Farrow, even though she's kind of like the crux of Rosemary's Baby. I think I just don't like Mia Farrow that much. You know,
I'm not a fan of Mia Farrow.
Yeah,
but I think Rosemary's Baby might be the first movie where I noticed her. I realized, who is this person? Oh, it's Mia Farrow. I've seen her here or there. So for me, like, it's almost not Mia Farrow.
I understand
that I don't like.
The film worked. Then,
exactly.
You know?
The film really exactly. I think that's a perfect
that's
role
what it's
for her.
Yeah. No, it is. It's her film in a lot of ways. You know, she's the main character of that film. You know,
but I love John Cassavetes in it, and
he's so good.
He's really good.
He really, you know, John Cassavetes is like us in a lot of ways because John Cassavetes was a filmmaker.
Yeah, he was one of the first like new Hollywood guys.
Yeah. He was I don't want to say avant-garde, but he was just in his fucking garage making films. You know, Woman Under the Influence and Faces.
Putting his own money to it.
Yeah,
that's
Faces
like independent filmmaking.
Oh my god, he's so good. Woman Under the Influence is like one of the best films of the '70s. I love that film. I love that fucking film, and he's just like. He's like a sad character in a way in real life. Like he was just like making these like he's making like Dirty Dozen.
Right.
For money so he can make, you know,
other
like
stuff.
Faces and shit. Like, and I just like, he's so real. He's like a Brooklyn guy. I don't know where he's from exactly. I think he's from New York, but he reminds me of like a Roy Schneider. Roy Schneider always reminds me of like a Brooklyn guy, like a guy who's like, you know, he's like us, you know, and And to me, you're a Brooklyn guy, by the way. You know.
Thank you.
And I don't know. I just really like John Cassavetes. I was watching Dirty Dozen recently.
Mm-hmm.
I like watching like
right.
I have HBO Max. I watch all the old films. You know. He's so good, man. He's just so real. He's like, you know, he's like Karras. What's his name? Jason Miller, and he's like Columbo. The guy Peter Falk. I fucking love Peter Falk. I wish Peter Falk was like in everything.
Yeah.
He's so like weird and like just fucking real.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of like been in a few things. Yeah. And later on he was in a bunch of comedy movies.
He was in Columbo. That's what he's known for. Yeah, obviously
exactly.
he was known for. Yeah. But I love him. He's so like just real looking. Like you've seen Peter Falk, you know, just walking around Bed-Stuy and like he's just like a weird guy. And I just love him. I love him. And I love John Cassavetes. John Cassavetes, like, he would have been Peter Falk in Woman Under the Influence. Mm-hmm. But, like, he probably, like, he was doing everything. So he's like, Peter, can you come do this?
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
I'm sorry that diverted to that movie.
That's fine. I like John Cassavetes. And I also see, like, a lot of influence of his type of movies. Nowadays, I feel like it left a big influence among actors, and people who love kind of
Well, Cassavetes was like almost like a filmmaker or like an actor's
Right,
actor.
exactly.
Like, you know, like that's
it
who
reminds
he
me
was.
of like Noah Baumbach kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Sometimes a
yeah.
lot of like this family relationship, long monologues and talking
Right.
to each other in one location.
Right.
Let's just swivel around
Right,
like one
right,
location.
right.
and-
Like fly on the wall. Like,
Exactly.
just fucking film it.
Exactly.
Yep,
Let's just go into the darkness and get out of it. Like, you know, sometimes not everything is lit perfectly. And do you know who turned down the Exorcist script?
No.
Stanley Kubrick.
Ha!
Because he only wanted to do his own scripts from then on.
Right.
Mike Nichols.
Mike Nichols was big at that time.
Exactly. But he didn't want to do it because he didn't believe Friedkin anybody could find a 12-year-old who would play that role.
That's a great segue, because the real crux of what I got from my last review is that Linda Blair is just fucking amazing.
Right.
She's so good, bro. Like we're making films with children sometimes.
Yeah.
That sounds weird. But we're making films with children.
Yeah.
And she is just like insanely good. Was she in anything before that? Jamie, pull it up. Jamie, please pull it up, because she was like with her whole, like, she has like a candor, like how she speaks. She's like, yeah, I think that's good. That's good. Like she has like this, like she's not reading a script.
This naivete.
And then she just fucking turns into a demon. I just wish I was Jason Miller for a moment, just to be in the room to see Linda Blair be like, your mother sucks cocks in hell. Like, she's so good. She's so good.
Yeah, that's a great line.
Remember when Marin dies?
Yeah.
And she's like
laughing. Yeah.
There's a lot. You know what's also cool about the 70s is, like, I watched these films with my mother, okay? And my mother's like, why is Marin going there? How did Marin die? I'm like, just watch the fucking film. Like, it's like, it doesn't have to hold your hand. Like, he died of a fucking heart attack. Like, it's whatever. And it's just, I like that. I like when the film isn't holding your hand every 5 seconds.
Oh, absolutely. But I also feel like that's like Friedkin's thing. I mean, a lot of people back then
it is.
Friedkin, if you watch like French Connection, and I fucking love that movie, and I watched it recently with Maria,
Right.
And she wasn't crazy bad. She thought it's like
I understand.
a guy's movie, and she was like, "Oh, it's good, but I just wouldn't ever put it on." And I'm like, "Let's watch it again right now." The cool thing about like French Connection is that it doesn't hold your hand either. So it cuts from one scene to the other very quickly.
Yeah.
And one example would be when Papa Doyle and Roy Scheider's character, I forget his name, they basically go out, to drink.
Yeah.
And they drink all night, and then Doyle notices some crime activity, some guys that shouldn't be there or doing something.
Yeah.
And he tells Roy Scheider, "Let's go follow them," right?
Yeah.
And Roy Scheider's like, we came here to hang out. And it's like, what? Like, I don't want to do this 24/7. And Papa Doyle is obsessed, right? So they go, they follow them, they realize there's something fishy.
Yeah.
It cuts to them already having a base across the street from the deli where all this stuff happening, and they already have the freaking bugs.
And that's how we do the Zoom scene.
Exactly.
Right.
But we cut through them telling their bosses that, hey, we found this guys, we gotta follow, gotta put this is weeks later, week maybe more later, and I like that, and I feel Exorcist does that too. It's just very crucial scenes, one after another.
Well,
fat.
In that, it does what a film's rules are. It's like, just show what you have to show.
Right.
You're not supposed to show all the rest of this stuff. And I guess I think that people think that we're dumb now. That's really the thing, is that they're just holding our hand for everything. But you're right. I have to rewatch the French Connection. I didn't do it for homework.
Right. Well, speaking about dumb people, when me and you watch It 2017 together, when the movie ended, we saw it at a regular movie theater. It was a lot of people.
Yeah.
The movie ended and it said Chapter 1. Right? And we hear this guy screaming, "I fucking knew it!" They have to be held
by the hand.
I know, but here's the real question.
Okay.
Let's get philosophical. Like, are they conditioned to be that way? Like, were people like smarter in the 70s? No.
Oh, that's a very good question.
You know what I mean? Like are we conditioned to have this ADD? Like, you know.
Well, let's go further back, right? To like, you know, when art was like the entertainment.
Let's go back to the cavemen before that. Humans are a plague on the world.
No, but I'm serious. Like when art was the entertainment of the time, right? You wanted to like go and talk about art,
right?
Was it just like a small excluded?
It's probably for
bubble.
Is
that what it was?
It's probably for wealthy people,
and that's it. So that was it. Now art is like you
now
know,
you just look at a JPEG of fucking art.
Yeah. Now it's like so popularized that everybody has an opinion and everybody is a critic.
That's a whole nother conversation. That's the social media age. But you know, there are, you know, people who rebel against that. They don't want that.
Speaking of holding your hand, here's another thing I rewatched recently. And I know you love that movie. I saw it like 2 days ago.
Sure.
I saw T2 that I haven't seen in a while.
Okay. You're gonna shit on T2 now?
No, I mean yes and no. I'm not. I love it
because it fucking rocks.
It does. But a couple things. I love Terminator 1 more than T2. But for me, the difference there is as big as Alien and Aliens.
Because it's the same thing almost.
It's almost the same thing. It's finding a different director, but it is the same thing.
It's literally the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Alien is a horror movie. Right. Slow as fuck.
Terminator's a horror movie.
Terminator's a horror movie. Exactly. Right. That's exactly what I'm getting. Right. And that's why I like it. I just love this small, contained thing where freaking Sarah Connor is literally a scream queen.
Yeah.
And
she is a scream.
She is a scream. Yeah. And it just takes all at night. And there's this guy who's
there's
after
Michael
her.
Myers is going after her.
Exactly.
The it. You know. The what is it called? The X Factor.
The X Factor. Yeah. Yes. And there's a man who can save her and who's there to protect her and
and then she does it herself because she's
exactly.
She has to be the final girl.
Correct.
She has to survive.
Correct. I just love how small that movie is, and it's very straightforward and all played very seriously. There's never a joke in the movie, so I love it a lot. It's like one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Now T2, I really like. How about that? Very, very, very much. Yeah. It's so it's like
I love T2 more than T1.
Right. I understand.
Yeah.
But it's like one of the most quintessential entertaining like blockbusters ever to me. The holding hand thing was for me, and I feel like, and then you notice it in all James Cameron movies like Titanic and all other films where he really wants to make sure everybody gets it.
Yeah, okay.
He really doesn't want, and it's just an observation. It's not criticism. I'm just
sure.
talking.
No, it's okay.
Like he doesn't want anything left to interpretation. And we just talking about the 70s directors who are like kind of all about that.
He's not like that. Yeah,
he's not. He just wants to like, all right. So make sure you didn't get it.
Yeah.
This is the scene I want to emphasize.
Please.
Is when they're like in the desert or whatever, Mexico, where they go.
Right.
And when Sarah Connor looks at T-800 and John playing together.
Yeah.
She says,
"No, you're right. You're right. Okay. Yeah. You're already there. Yeah. Okay."
And she's like.
The child he has more of a father with this machine. Yeah. It's on the fucking nose. Yeah.
I was like, all right, like that's like the whole movie basically.
Yeah,
and
literally in one monologue.
Yeah.
And she's like, the machine is more of a father than anything I could have provided for him.
He would never be angry at him. He would never be drunk. He would never not play with him.
It's like just pick better men, Sarah.
And I almost feel like, and she doesn't say it, she thinks it. So I almost feel like it was like almost a decision later in the edit or something.
It probably was.
Yeah.
Maybe it was James Cameron. It probably was James Cameron.
It probably was.
It almost definitely was James Cameron.
Yeah.
But I'm trying
I don't know if that's clear. I want to make sure that people get that.
I actually always complain about that line.
Okay, I didn't know that because I haven't seen it in a long time, and I'm like now.
Because it's like that's the whole fucking movie.
Yeah, that's the whole
fucking
movie,
jerk off.
Yeah, that's what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah,
and then you slap me in the face because you think I'm an idiot.
And then it's like the movie just tries to like shut it down immediately because like after that she goes and tries to kill Miles Dyson.
Yeah.
And like
I
like
think
a child.
plays this role phenomenally. I just love that guy so much.
I know, but he's been playing that role for the rest of his life.
Oh,
as well.
really?
Yeah, no,
I don't
literally.
realize.
He's fucking Cyborg's dad in the Snyder's Justice League.
Oh, that's him.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
His name is I know his name. His name is Joe Morton.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Joe Morton.
Jesus.
He's playing he's just like typecast as like the AI creator.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't know why.
But I really like he does a really good job though. He's
does.
he's so believable.
No,
I really-
T2 for me is like amazing. It's a masterpiece of action.
Yeah,
like
it
it's
is.
just a
It
masterpiece
is.
of action.
It
Like
is.
it's
It
what
is.
that scene aside, it's a masterpiece of action. I love it.
I absolutely. The most satisfying scene to me is when T-1000 goes through the cage, through the bars.
Yes, okay.
And the guys just like finally see it.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
they
The
finally,
guy
like,
who thought like Sarah
and
was
his
fuck-
like cigarette like
he's like-
falls. Like, yeah, exactly. I just like love all that kind of stuff.
I mean, here, I'm gonna give you like real sappy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When he says hasta la vista, baby, I don't care. I don't care if it's fucking Forrest Gump sappy.
Yeah.
It fucking moves me.
Yeah.
I don't care. Fuck you. it's fucking because he learned. Like he's like, and then you realize like if you really dig into it, and I've watched T2 50 times. Like John is going to be affected by this for the rest of his fucking life. Like John is going to be a paranoid, alien, robot loving, man for the rest of his life. And then T3 is like weird. He's just like a normal guy.
Yeah, just fuck.
And it's like
it's not canon for
yeah,
me. None
exactly.
of that stuff.
It's like
just forget
dude,
about it.
your dad was the Terminator. Like, come on. Like you should be like militant about this shit.
Yeah.
But it's like Catherine Brewster is the like fuck off. Like anyway,
Hasta la vista, baby.
when he does Hasta la Vista, baby, like that is for me, that is what film is about. Like moments like that when characters have these very real moments. I don't care if they're cliche. It doesn't matter. Film is about these moments, characters changing, characters having a realization. I have realizations. You have realizations. You have moments you're like, oh shit, I'm 31. I don't know if you want to put that on camera. Oh shit, I'm 31. I have things I want to achieve in my life. We have those. The fucking robot has them.
Yeah.
This is what film is about. It's about human moments. I don't care how cliche they are. Fuck off if you think they're cliche. If you think you're trying to reinvent the wheel, you're full of shit. Okay? Because everything has been done before.
Yeah.
Just be honest. What do you think is good? Try to do that as much as you can. That's it. When he says hasta la vista, baby, it's one of the greatest moments in action movie history. It's the seminal moment. It's the moment where, like, we're going to do puns. We're going to, like, this is it. And, like, I understand that as a genre. Like, I understand that, like, okay, this is what action movies are trying to achieve. That's why I don't really, like, really quick segue. I don't criticize Fast and Furious movies. Like, they're going to keep coming out. They're going to be the definition of our era. Like, F11 is gonna come out. F12, they're gonna like fucking be with Independence Day. Like it's just gonna like combine. Like you're gonna keep going. Whatever. That's what they're trying to achieve. Like how can you criticize a movie for being bad if like that's literally what they were aiming for?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I'm absolutely on the same page. Like I don't, I don't watch those movies, but I don't complain. There's nothing to complain about.
Like if that's
they
what
do their own thing.
If
like,
that's what you're aiming for, you've achieved it.
exactly.
So, and none of these movies would exist without T2.
Yeah.
For me, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
T2 was like, oh, you could do puns. Oh, you could be kind of funny in some moments. Oh, you could sympathize with the alien character. Do it.
Yeah.
And you can still have heart. You have heart. I mean, in Fast and Furious, there's like all the memes right now is like
the
family,
family stuff. Yeah, exactly,
family. But that's what they're aiming for. They're like, how could you criticize it? Like if you've achieved what you're aiming for. So
yeah. I love how in T2, well, first of all, Robert Patrick does like phenomenal performance. And
he's amazing.
he's amazing.
He's the X Factor.
Yeah,
there is a monster in the film.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's him. And he's so scary. And one of the scariest thing he does for me is when he just starts running after the car.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And here's my how I read it. He's a Terminator. In his head, He did a calculation,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And the calculation says, I can outrun.
Yes,
I can catch
exactly.
it.
Like, I'm not going to stop here because
Yeah.
I could get it. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And he never like breathes hard. Like I don't know how they did it, right? But he's all just that. Yeah. It's so amazing. It's almost like I remember when I was a kid, we used to
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because if he's a robot, he would have calculated that he cannot achieve this. So he would have just stopped and gotten into a car.
Which he does.
Yes.
Which he does when he throws his thing, right?
Yes.
He has like these
He's like, fuck
swords.
it. I gotta go.
Yeah, and he goes literally back,
Yeah, yes.
which is even more ironic,
Yes.
right? He just goes back. He's gonna find completely other way.
Yes.
You know? But yeah, when I was a kid, I remember we used to run like him. We would try to imitate because
I
he
did
made
too.
running cool.
Yes, he did.
Across. He was just like, I just want to run.
Yeah, he
just
did.
like you just did. Yeah. Yeah. Just no smile, nothing.
Stop.
Just like.
Okay.
Stop. And another cool thing, and I wish I could experience that when I was like 2 years old. I wouldn't be able to, but when it first came out in the theater, the scene when we don't know who is the good and who is the bad.
Right.
The only time we find out is when they meet in the mall.
Right, and they have the moment in the hall.
You don't know until Arnold says, "Get down."
Yeah.
Until that line, you don't know who is the good guy, who is the good Terminator, who is the bad Terminator, and that's like supposed to surprise you because you remember that
He's big.
Arnold is the bad.
Yeah.
One complaint for me is I don't buy Bad to the Bone with Terminator with T-800. Like I wish that sells it to me that he might be a good guy here.
Well, if you want to get to moments that bother you, okay, this is the biggest moment of the 70s that bothers me.
70s.
Yep.
Oh.
Like out of every film, obviously I haven't studied it extensively as I've studied this film. In Godfather Part 2. We have to go there. I'm sorry. I'm here. We have to go there. Okay. There's a scene early in the film where it cuts to Fredo while he's sleeping and he gets a phone call. And I told you this when you watched it with Maria recently.
Trying to remember.
Okay. There's a scene that should have been fucking deleted. It sucks. Where Fredo picks up the phone and he goes, hello? And they go, it didn't work with Michael. It's like Johnny Ola is on the phone.
Yeah.
Okay, Uncle Junior is on the phone.
Right.
And he's like, basically revealing that Fredo is the fucking traitor. Fuck you. Why are you doing? We should learn that when Michael learns it. Fuck you. So
Yeah, I don't
it
know.
happened
Why
2
would they do
decades
that?
before fucking Terminator, what we're talking about. Fuck you. I fucking hate that scene.
So let me just reiterate that Tony's favorite movie of all time, if you had to name one, it'd be probably Godfather Part 2.
If I was on an island alone for the rest of my life, I would watch Godfather Part 2 every day. I would just with like an iPad charger and just like
I was discussing with somebody recently that in Azerbaijan, that was a very popular movie. Like everybody was obsessed with Godfather.
not just in Azerbaijan.
No, I guess not just in Azerbaijan, but more than other places. Like, listen, I meet so many people who never heard of it.
Yeah.
Over there, it was like fucking Sounds of Music, all right?
Sure.
Like, everybody heard of it. Everybody knows it. Like, there's just weird thing there. Like, everybody knows Home Alone. Everybody knows Godfather Part 1 and Part 2. But I believe they like it, I don't want to say for the wrong reasons. I hate saying that. But kind of like for the reasons that are not per se surface reasons. How about that?
Okay. Yeah.
They like it for the machismo of these men and their rules and the way they carry themselves and the pride and all that stuff.
On the surface level, The Godfather is a man's film.
Right.
But women love The Godfather as well.
Sure. But men in Azerbaijan are very much in love with the movie.
Yes.
I just want to talk about, why you like it and what's there for you. What is the film guy likes it for? And you like it more than I do.
I mean,
it's your favorite movie.
I think Godfather is the greatest film of all time. I've watched it at least
and let's emphasize also, sorry, but like the book doesn't carry the same significance in literature. It's nothing.
No,
It's like a zero.
It's a Pulp Fiction.
It's a Pulp Fiction, exactly.
that's
It's
what
like
it is.
just a popular
But
book.
I've read the book and I love it.
I read the book too. It's fun, but it's not.
I actually did Zeke's homework for the book when he had to do. Remember when you had to do like an assignment for the book in the Italian class?
Yeah, but I read it. But I asked you like for some stuff. I think.
I thought I did your homework
No.
for you. I sent you like a fucking essay or something.
I don't think so.
In the fucking Facebook message.
I remember asking you like.
Well,
some
I'm
things.
telling everybody
You
that
didn't
I
write,
did
like, an
that.
essay.
I'm telling everybody that I did that, and that's what happened. So, history is written by the victors.
You know what? It's fine.
Anyway, why do I like The Godfather?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not for the machismo shit. It's not for that, obviously. That's surface layer. That's like what The Godfather shows you, like men are men, and this is what men do to protect their family and stuff. Why do I think The Godfather is the greatest film of all time, and The Godfather Part 2? They're kind of like linked to me.
Right.
They're seminal films. They're very important.
I mean, they are connected, but they're not the same films.
No, they're not the same film. They're not the same film. The Godfather is definitely it's almost like a different film than The Godfather Part 2. But in my head, like I've always had this battle of like what's better. You have to do like a hot take. Godfather Part 2 is better. Godfather Part 1 is better. I think, like, from my understanding of film, how I relate to film, how I see film, and also the cultural references. Like when you watch The Godfather, it's different than when I watch The Godfather. The Godfather is it hits home. I was raised with my grandparents. My grandparents are very traditional, so I actually understand what they're saying. Like I get it, like on a very like visceral level. Like I get like Paulie at the very beginning of The Godfather at the wedding, okay, and he's like, I got 2 gabagools, and he's throwing something to him. He's throwing sandwiches because back in the day, even if they were wealthy, it was a very like traditional, almost like a peasant thing. Our cultures are peasant cultures. Yeah. They're not wealthy cultures, right? It's a football. It's like a sandwich football party. That's what they're doing, and they're showing that without saying it, right? It's like the whole film is showing without telling. The whole film. The whole film, Michael and Vito, who are the 2 dual protagonists of The Godfather, are ahead of the script. And it's so profound to me every time I watch it. I would literally watch it with you right now. We could stop the fucking podcast and I would watch it and I would get like emotional because it's so it has a protagonist in the film that is literally ahead of the script. He is smarter than the viewer. In most films, like I just said earlier, we should have learned that Fredo is the traitor when Michael learns. Because Michael is so ahead of the script. Like when Michael goes and meets, okay, this is like a really.
We shouldn't find that out before Michael.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Michael is smarter than us. Michael Corleone, that's his superpower, right? If you treat it like that, like his superpower is that he's got the wisdom of Vito, and he's smarter than us. So when he goes and meets Hyman Roth, okay, he's like really calm. And in that scene, Hyman Roth is his antagonist. He knows that he's the villain, but he's being calm. And then when he meets Pantangeli right after, and he says,
Cuba, right?
He goes to Miami first.
Oh, right, yeah, Miami, yeah, right.
And then
one-on-one, they meet.
Right. And then he's having like a tuna sandwich, right? And then the next scene, Michael goes to New York, and Pantangeli, who was supposed to be Clemenza, by the way, it was supposed to be Clemenza, but it's Pantangeli. He goes to his old house, and he has the famous line, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer, right? He's flipping out because he's being real in that scene. And like when anybody watches that film, I've watched this film literally 100 times. Like, I'm serious, 100 times I've watched the film. Everybody's lost. Nobody knows who Clemenza is, who Pantangeli is. Nobody. It's like not holding your hand at all. And Michael has already figured out that Hyman Roth is the villain. Somebody in his family is a traitor. He's got to put Tom in position to like protect the family. He's got to figure it out. And I love that. It's like you've not only achieved only showing and telling, but you've literally made the protagonist smarter than the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never seen a film do that. I've never seen because the rule is to show and tell. You have to that's how you do it. And The Godfather somehow achieves a perfect film. And you know where it breaks? It breaks at the most crucial moment. It's not with betrayal of the family, it's betrayal within, which is what Michael's afraid of. Michael and Vito were always afraid that their family could crumble, right? Because that's what the whole film's about. It's about family. It's like Vin Diesel.
Is there a scene with Diane Keaton?
With Diane Keaton, when she tells him it was an abortion.
Yeah.
Because all of us were not prepared for that.
And that's where he loses it. He shows his weakness.
Exactly. The one moment in the movie where Michael isn't in control is when we literally have finally caught up with him. We're like, okay, we're here. We get it. He's been using us the whole time. He's been trying to figure out who the traitor is. He's been trying to protect his family. He's been trying to be his father, which is what we're all trying to fucking do. We're all trying to be someone we're not.
Yeah.
Okay? And he's like fucking blindsided, which is the most realistic fucking thing. You know, you get broken up with, you get hurt, someone dies, it's the most realistic thing. She goes, it's a fucking abortion. And Michael is the smartest protagonist we've ever seen.
Didn't see that.
Literally, we've ever seen. Name a smarter protagonist. There isn't one. Michael is really a smart guy. He went to fucking Harvard. He went to fucking
military and everything.
Brown.
All kinds of experience.
He fucking fought in the war.
Yeah.
He's a really experienced guy, and he was not prepared for the most obvious thing, that he betrayed the one thing that he loved, and it's his actual family. And then at the end of the movie, what is this all for? It's pointless. Vito's dream is pointless. Because he kills his brother. He divorces his wife. He's away from his children. Michael sits on an empty throne. It's like the most... I mean, it's terrible. It's literally awful. It makes me emotional. But it's like, how did a script do this? Like, it got to the point where, like, it made the protagonist so unlikable that we watch him like a villain. Like, he's literally a bad guy now. And there's nobody else to watch. We're not watching Kay. We're not watching anybody else. We're only watching Michael doing terrible things because it's like a reaction. He doesn't know what else to do. It's like, it's the most brilliant film I've ever seen. I've never seen a film that does that. It's so amazing. And every time I watch it, I've watched it with every one of my friends. I've watched it with you. I watched it with your fucking roommate one time.
Yeah.
It's so profound to me.
Why does Michael fail? What's so amazing about Vito, right? The man everybody aspires to be, and especially in part 2.
Every man aspires to be Vito.
Portrayed so brilliantly by De Niro, which is like amazing, right? When he brings the apple home and like... I remember
the pair.
The pair. Oh, you're right. Yes, the pair. Sorry.
Cut it out.
What does Michael... Where does he fuck up?
Okay, I mean, I told you this, but we're gonna say it anyway. Is that there's two answers to this. Number one, it's hard to maintain an empire than it is to build an empire, especially in Vito's time when there was no fucking fingerprints. Vito was literally,
which is the classic crime drama scenario, right?
Vito was literally handed his empire. Because once he killed Fanucci, he was literally, like, the people of the neighborhood just gave him the authority. Like, you know, his wife fucking helped him.
Yeah.
Okay. The second thing is that from the greatest scene of any film, I don't care, I'll fucking fight with you, okay? I'll fucking fight. The greatest scene of any film of all time, the one that still makes me cry, I'll still get emotional in front of you, I don't care, is when Vito is sitting... in amazing mise en scène, by the way, with his son in the backyard, and he says, I never wanted this for you. And he tells him the truth. It's like the one scene in the film that's like very honest. Every scene is like depicting men playing chess with the audience and with the characters. And the one scene, he just literally says, I didn't want this for you. I wanted you to be the senator, a congressman, whatever. Just not be involved in the family. Michael didn't want to be involved in the family. So their goals were actually aligned. Mm-hmm. So Michael's resentment was actually what Vito wanted.
Right.
when he says that, it's an unachievable goal.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, he's doomed to fail because the truth of the mafia, the truth of corruption, the truth of politics is that there is no end. And that's almost like the beautiful poetry of The Godfather, is that Michael is fighting a battle that he cannot win. The only way Michael could win is if he dissolves the family. There cannot be a mafia.
Mm-hmm.
There cannot be anything. He has to be just a man. And he cannot do that with a family. So there's no end to this. And by the third movie, which is really the epilogue of the series, Michael literally gives up because at every level, there isn't a pet savant, there isn't a puppet master. There's just corruption at every level of our infrastructure. There is no good. There is no like uncorruptible.
Mm-hmm.
Michael cannot achieve his goal,
which is
to be legitimate. Just
Mm-hmm.
make the family applicable to society. The family blood is tainted forever. Once you become part of corruption, once you become a part of even politics, you're corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
There's no out. You cannot win.
Did you finish? It might be a big jump, but Chernobyl?
I did. I watched it in one day.
Quite amazing.
It was amazing.
I love the scene, and it was actually also mentioned by the creator in the podcast, which is like dedicated to like a Chernobyl podcast. There's where Michael Crane Mason, I forget the guy, created the show. But I noticed it when I saw it when Professor Legasov goes to the hotel in episode 2,
Right.
and asks for a drink.
Right. And then he sees the people.
And sees the people.
Right.
And the minute he lies to them,
Right.
where he's involved.
Right. Exactly. And that's something.
That's like what happens to him later. Literally, it starts right there.
Right. Right. And that's something. When people talk to me about politics and stuff, I actually don't really want to get into politics at all.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just my own personal
Right.
taste. We talked about
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
But
I don't want to talk about
when
it.
people talk about these kind of things, it's like, okay, corruption is at every level. You know, nepotism isn't unique to Azerbaijan. It isn't unique to anything. It's corruption is at every level. If you are in a company and you say, I got my buddy Anthony who could do it, and you're doing great in that company, that's corruption. That is corruption. Because it's not based on my merit, it's based on your word of mouth and you brought me in.
Mm-hmm.
That's already corruption. And that's corruption we accept. That's a corruption that we literally accept. We accept that every single day of our life. So when you get to The Godfather and Michael's making deals with the fucking Pope and he's making deals with the government, everything is corrupt. It's always corrupt because human nature is corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not corrupt in like a kind of conspiratorial way. It's just literally what's good for one person. There's a major plot point of Godfather Part 2 where Tom, who is the boss at the time,
Right.
fucking kills a prostitute
Yeah.
to blackmail a senator. And everybody, like, Tom is a bad guy. Like, Tom killed a woman. That was Tom's call. That wasn't Michael's call. To get a senator on their side. And the senator just gets on their side because of corruption. Basic human need. Like, I can't be involved in this. It's not bigger than that. You know, it's at every level. Anytime you get somebody involved in something, it's corruption. And you just imagine it just goes up and goes up, goes up and goes up. You know, when money gets involved. When imagine if you weren't home and you had a lot of animals. You have 3 now, but you have a lot of animals. And Maria calls you and says, "This one's being made." I don't know, just put them in the room. So imagine that's a lot of people, right? You just everybody in Bed-Stuy is acting up. I don't know, just send some fucking cops there, right? It's the same thing. Like you're not thinking of these people as people. You're not thinking of the dog. I have 7 dogs. Put them in the fucking room. You're thinking of just send cops there. It's the same thing. People are not. There's not like the politicians are better. Michael is a human being. Politicians are human being. We're human beings. We're all susceptible to corruption. That's it. I think it's very honest in that film. to go back to that film.
Yeah.
It's very odd.
So do you think that, from what I understand, if Vito, let's say, had another 100 years to live,
Right.
same thing would have happened to him eventually?
Well, not the same thing. Not the same thing. But I think that he would never get to the point where once you've involved in that world, and like it's kind of criticizing the American dream. That's really the thing. It's beyond the mafia. This is why, once again, the 70s were fucking amazing and all these films were very readable, right? Is that the criticism of the American dream is that it's not achievable, right? I don't necessarily agree with this, but it's that the real American dream is to become president one day, right? Like anybody could be president.
Right.
Okay. Once you've entered that system, you're corrupt. So Vito enters a world in the 20s and the 30s where things are a little more simple than it is in the 50s and the 60s. Okay. By the 70s and 80s, it's completely eroded. And by now it is what it is. You know, we have who we have. Okay. When Vito enters, eventually the mafia is doomed to fail. It doesn't matter what happens because either intelligence becomes more important. Vito can't get his son to a position that becomes powerful. Even if he does, corruption is at every level. So it's an unachievable goal. It's an unachievable goal. The only way to be corrupt, and this is what's the beauty of it, this is why De Niro plays him fucking amazing, is that Vito is such a good guy. He's such an aspiring man that as men, we want to be, right? We want to be able to provide for our wife, have children, have a house, be able to work with our hands, do good things, right? He brings a pair home, his fucking wife is happy, right? That's, happy wife, happy life. We all want that. Vito could have been a fucking priest. He was that good. He was a good man. He didn't fucking speak until he was 9 years old. He was literally a good man. That would have been a better life for him. Once he enters the mafia, it's doomed to fail no matter what. It's doomed. There's no version of this that ends good. His son could not become good.
Well, I think like the most simple kind of explanation of difference between good and bad and how actually close that line is
Right. Okay.
is Star Wars. That
Yeah.
explains it like so
Yeah.
easy, right? That
Right,
we're just
right.
so dumb, almost like
another film that I'm.
yeah, you actually love it, and we can talk about it. You know it more than
Right,
I do,
right.
and I just kind of I'm a fan, but not really as much as you are.
Right.
Like, how many bad days are you away from snapping and doing something terrible?
Right.
Right. And as you said, like Vito could have been somebody who
You could have been a priest.
could have been a priest who did something really good.
There's an element right there. I want to just stop you for 1 second. There's an element in both sagas called destiny. That is one element that contradicts what we're about to talk about, I think, in a way.
Yeah. I mean, sure. Let's explore that.
There's an element of blood. Like, it's in Vito's blood to behave like this. It's in Michael's blood. And it's in Anakin's blood. Like, he's supposed to behave like this because he's the chosen one and he's supposed to save his son one day. That's aside. I just wanted to just point that out. There is.
How real is it in real life? That's
That's the real question.
We always like draw these lines with and compare them to real life. And I think I love that about films because we portray, we show this, stories that kind of, that are painted as metaphors to our real life. And I love that about Star Wars because I do believe that, Anakin could have been a good father to Luke and they could have lived happily, together. And they were both very talented. To me, another just real quick, and then you can,
please.
To me, it's the same with like Bane and the Dark Knight and the Batman. They're like a perfect Bane is exactly. Bane is the Darth Vader. They were from the same school of thought. They know everything, and that's why he's kind of perfect villain for Batman because he knows all these tricks. Like people who, he always face people who don't know his stuff.
Right.
He knows. He knows it even better because he has more pain.
Right.
And
Batman is a man who has pain.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. It's so very similar, but one went the other way. one the other.
What would
one the
Batman
other
be
way.
like if he was bad?
Exactly, and I feel like it's like that. Like
What would Luke be like if he was bad?
exactly, it's like a straight line. We walk the path we walk on, and then any moment you can just somehow go into the wrong direction to the dark side.
That's more realistic. Okay,
Right.
so destiny thing aside, let's get past that. I just wanted to bring it up, but okay.
You mentioned that about Vito, and that's what made me think of this.
Okay, so there's so here's the thing. If you want to go to Star Wars for a second,
Sure,
okay,
yeah.
There's a moment at the end of Return of the Jedi, okay, that Luke is being tempted by the dark side. Okay, so it's like it's a history repeating itself. Okay, it's almost like the antithesis of the Godfather.
Well, isn't like the whole kind of crux of that story is kind of he's always like wearing dark and he's kind of portrayed like that.
Right,
like,
right. Like he's like destined to become like his father, right? Which is like the antithesis of the Godfather because Michael doesn't want to be like his father, so they're kind of good 70s films to juxtapose each other.
Well, that was already 80s though, but
well, it was, but it started in the 70s, 77.
Right,
yeah, okay.
right.
So yeah, it was the 80s by then. It was 83. But I believe that Michael could have. I'm sorry, Michael. I believe that Luke could have turned to the dark side.
okay.
Okay, like it isn't an unbelievable thing to me. When I watch the film, I see the through line. I see that like Luke could have turned because he has a real motivation is to be with his father, which is literally his one goal. What is Luke's goal? He has no goal, right? He just wants to be good because he wants to help the rebellion. He wants to find his father. Once he finds his father, he wants to try to get to his father. He wants to understand him. So when I watch Return of the Jedi, I believe, despite how it's shot, despite what anybody might think, that Luke could turn to the dark side. Unlike newer films where I'm like, okay, they're not going to turn to the fucking dark side. It's not going to fucking happen. But I believe that Luke could have because he had it in him. And what's most fascinating about Jedi is that at the end, Luke doesn't actually win by fighting a bad guy. He wins by doing the most Jedi thing you possibly could do, which is what Michael probably should have done back in The Godfather, is I'm not doing this anymore. The only way to get rid of this is to end it. Luke says, I'm not going to fight my father. I'm not going to fight the Emperor. I'm not going to fight because that's what a Jedi would do. And Jedi is what we relate to, right? The whole saga, we're hearing Jedi, and we keep hearing like, we want to be like a Jedi. What's a Jedi? And then the film's called Return of the Jedi. And the Return of the Jedi is actually Anakin. Anakin returns because he does the right thing in the end. Luke doesn't save the day. Luke saves the day only by refusing to fight. Right? So
he encourages.
And the Emperor starts killing him, and then Vader turns and he becomes Anakin again because he won't see his son die. So it's an antithesis to the Godfather way. Michael becomes worse than Vito. Luke surpasses his father in the one moment of temptation we all have where we're in traffic.
That's where that line basically is that we're talking about. That's a good answer.
Right.
That's exactly what happens.
Exactly. Luke surpasses his father by not taking the emotional road. He says, no, I'm a Jedi like my father before me. And every time I watch that film, I get emotional when he says that. I think that's the greatest moment of all of Star Wars because that's what a Jedi would do. And then Vader becomes Anakin again. It doesn't absolve Vader. Vader did terrible things, but he's still changed. He becomes Anakin again.
There is some redemption.
There's redemption. Doesn't mean he's not going to be punished. And in fact, Vader condemns himself to death.
Yeah.
He realizes he's going to die by doing this, but he doesn't care because he wants to see his son. Because he realizes this is the right thing to do. And it's I like that you brought that up because it kind of is a perfect. I mean, I love both films. I love both sagas, and they're kind of antithesis to each other in that thesis. Right?
Yeah. Just they do the opposite things.
They do the opposite things.
I mean, well, like rightfully so. Like it's like it's completely different. Well, what I like here is that like there's only so many themes you can play with. A lot of films we watch.
One would say there's about 7.
Yeah, exactly.
One would say there's about
exactly about 7. And in a way, like when you tell somebody that I always love that one, but like you can tell any story in a any kind of genre.
Right.
Right? When you work in genres, you can make Godfather, you can draw parallels to Star Wars, and people are like, what? Like, why? It's different movies, but, you know, they actually have something similar. They play with similar themes.
My thing is, like, film for me, and I wrote it in the essay, and I think it moved you a little bit. I think when I got to that thesis, I couldn't describe it well. I think it's something that moves all of us. Is those moments. Is the moments where you realize that Michael killed Fredo, so therefore the dream is dead. And Michael sits on an empty throne. And it's moving. It's like, holy shit. Like, this is all pointless. Vito wouldn't want this. Because we all did this for family.
Yeah.
Right? But it's the same moment. Right? It's the same. I have the same emotion when Luke throws his lightsaber and says, I'm not going to fight. I'm a Jedi like my father before me. Even though he just fought his father. But he still believes in him. It's those moments that capture the beauty of life, almost like the beauty of what we are capable of. You know, like we are able to have these moments and go, wait a second, I'm going to change, or I can't change, or whatever. The beauty of symmetry, or the beauty of like juxtaposition, we cannot change. Or there's a tear that drops down my face when I see these moments, and film capture this in the most honest way. When that happens, it's a good film. It's a good film because you've achieved that, you know. And we go back to The Exorcist, right? Let's go back to the beginning of our conversation. Like when Karras fucking says, "Take me," he believes in faith again. Like, this could happen. This isn't psychology. Take me, and it fucking happens, and he surpasses the demon and kills himself.
Yeah.
Like, he has more will than the demon to kill himself to save this child. Like, in that one moment, the film doesn't stop and go like, I believe in faith again.
Yeah.
You know, like films today might do. He has belief, because if it was just psychology, remember at the beginning of his conversation with Karras, he goes like, there's actually 3 personalities. And then Karras says, there's one.
No, Marin says there's
one. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Marin says there's one.
That's a good one.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he must believe in faith to say something like that. A psychiatrist wouldn't say that. He would think that this is all fake, right? This is, even though the fucking body levitated, but he would think this is all fake. He believes again.
Yeah.
These moments are what film is about to me. When profound changes happen in a character, when they realize something, when moments of life are brought to this dramatic climax, that's what film does for me, and it moves me every time. Even though I've seen it so many times. I've seen Exorcist, I've seen Star Wars, I've seen Godfather 100 times. It still moves me.
Do you think there's some sort of like a transition period that we're living through right now in film? I feel like my experience is that a lot of stuff that's coming out, it's not great.
Right.
One.
Right.
Secondly, the stuff that's good, most of the time, pays some sort of either homage to something old. Right. It's some sort of nostalgia piece at best.
Right.
And then sometimes it would just be, you know, maybe not nostalgia piece, but still some sort of commentary almost on the cinema itself.
Right.
It's like too...
That's the postmodern movement.
The postmodern movement.
Postmodern movement is all about deconstruction.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think...
Yeah, that's correct. The good stuff is really the postmodern stuff.
But I think there's actually a moment that's happening. I want to see if you agree. Is that like we're almost past postmodern? We're like postmodern.
Well, yeah.
Because like we're getting to a point where we want genuine feeling again. Because we've had about 20 years of postmodern.
Yeah, maybe more.
Right? So like me and you have grown up through the postmodern movement. We've actually appreciated the postmodern movement, which is all about deconstruction and all about like questioning our beliefs.
Yes.
And we're getting to a point where we're like, can you just be fucking genuine again? Like just be honest. Like we are what we are. That's something I actually wanted to discuss with you. It's interesting you brought it up.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
That's exactly my question. You're correct. I forgot.
I think we're getting past that, because at least for my own taste, I would like to get past that, because I'm through with like talking about things like with this like fucking snide, sarcastic. Well, Vader was still bad. Like, fuck you. Like, let's move on. Like it's over. Like whatever it is. It doesn't have to be Star Wars. It can be stuff that's out now. But I'm past it. I'm past it. Like where I'm like, let's stop deconstructing. Can we just be fucking honest for a moment? And I think films, I hope, are getting to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious.
I don't know if they are.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if they are because
right.
there's a lot of like social commentary. There's a lot of things going on in the world that bring us.
There's a lot to talk about.
There's a tremendous amount to talk
Yeah.
about. But to answer your specific question, I don't know if we're getting there, but I think that we will.
Okay.
Because
So it is some sort of like a reflection time that we've had for like 20 years.
well, it's like a cycle. You know, I mean, I think Generation Z, you know, the generation after us and stuff. I think that they might want something. I'm hoping. I'm saying I think, but I'm saying I'm hoping. I'm hoping they want something a little more genuine when they look back on film and they see what we could present. Is just like, just show us what it is. Like, you know, I think I see that a little bit. I think I see it a little bit in our youth. I'm hoping I see that a little bit more. I think a lot of things is a response to our time, which is what it is, which is what film has always been, which is what art has always been. But I think if you ask me what I want, I think it's time to go back. Like, it's time to just be
Right.
like, let's just be honest now.
Right.
Right.
I just saw the other day Censor. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
It just came out on Prime. You can rent it for like $7. Like, so they still
Right.
making money.
Right.
It's a horror film about the 80s video nasties. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Basically, they all kind of PC stuff, and
Yeah.
like the fact that they
Well,
were
that's the thing with the 80s. The 60s, the 50s and 60s were kind of PC.
right, and then 70s
But like in
went
a
crazy.
conservative way. And then
Right.
like 80s started to change a little
Correct.
to more the political correctness we know now.
Yes.
But the 70s were this beautiful moment
Yeah.
where we had just honest filmmaking.
Right.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, and the 80s was like fucked, and it's also based in England. The movie it might have been an English production, but it's about like basically how they were censoring all the Giallo films and all
Right.
the
Right.
So
Right.
80s
I didn't watch
kind
it,
of-
but I know what you're
Right,
talking
right.
about. Yeah, yeah.
So and the film is good. It's a good horror film.
Right.
It kind of plays with that what's the guy's name? David Cronenberg kind of little psychological thing, which is
Right.
not always my favorite. I realize kind of I like the film, but I don't love it because it doesn't do I like the real thing,
Right,
what
right.
actually happens. I'm not the
Right.
biggest fan of psychological kind of subtext. But at the end of the day, for me, it's still like a commentary on the zeitgeist, not only 80s, but kind of what's happening now. There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Clearly, the person, like the main character, is the person who censors the films,
Yeah.
and clearly, you could see director doesn't is not supporting that. But my point is, I don't know if I want to keep watching movies where I have to understand director's intent that obviously,
Well, it's funny. We're always on the same page a
Yeah.
little bit. We're always on the same page a little bit. Is that I got to the point where I'm postmodern.
Right.
You know, I actually enjoy the genuine now. I'm a little tired of it. I'm a little tired of the snide remarks and the commentary. I just
Yeah.
want to watch something that's genuine.
Right.
I realize now that it's what I always loved, but I grew up through that period, so I kind of accepted that period, and I talked about it. And I love the Coen brothers, you know, which are very postmodern and deconstructive. But things we were just talking about, they're not that.
What's the what are some of the best films you've seen in the past that came out in the past 10 years?
Okay, so the two best films I could think of without thinking, with drinking immediately. Okay, so everybody should watch these films. Is Whiplash, which I think is an amazing film, very honest, just pure cinema, just be what it is, and Jojo Rabbit I think is a very good film. Yeah, I think it's a very good film.
What do you think of Three Billboards?
Three Billboards. That's enough. I'm drinking a little bit, so just give me a fucking break, all right? I haven't drank in a while, so just give me a fucking break. Three Billboards, I think, is a phenomenal film.
I was thinking maybe we can talk a little bit about Three Billboards. I remember we saw it together. Oh, you brought some cigars.
Let's have a cigar first.
Smoke cigars too. All right,
Okay.
let's do it, man.
So what do you want to talk about?
I remember watching it with you. That movie,
Three Billboards.
Three Billboards. We saw it together. It kind of does a little unorthodox thing, but it's not postmodern. I feel like it's pretty genuine.
I think it is genuine. Yeah.
What is it?
Fuck you. All right.
Why are people complaining about that movie?
Because it makes a racist character a semi-protagonist and likable. That's why.
You don't think it's accidental? You don't.
Absolutely
You
not.
think he's very
Absolutely not.
aware and it's very well delivered.
100%. 100%. You know, I mean, I can write an essay on this film. You know, I think it's an amazing film, and I kind of, frankly, I feel a little bad that I didn't bring it up in my two films of recent time. I'm a little embarrassed, but it's a phenomenal film. There's actually only one scene in the film that I don't like. Every
Which
other
one was
scene,
it?
when she sees the deer.
Oh yeah, that one's
Yeah,
weird.
I'm not crazy about that scene. I think it's
Especially
a little,
it's a CGI deer.
yeah,
It's even worse.
It's a little on the nose. It's a little weird.
Agreed. I've seen
Otherwise-
it like twice, I think, but
I've seen it a few times. Otherwise, I legitimately cry during this film.
wow.
The real question I think you're answering, you're questioning me is,
How is it achievable, and what does it really say?
well, it goes back to what we were saying earlier. You know, does a person have to be likable? You know, no, they don't have to be likable to empathize with them. You know, I think that in especially today's world, we are getting very two-dimensional or one-dimensional. And in Three Billboards, we have a character who is blatantly racist and negative. You know, he's in trouble for doing that, and he's in a position of authority. He's a cop, and by the end of the film, we're rooting for him. And if anybody who watched the film is rooting for him, I mean, like you're lying if you're not. You're rooting for him. And yes, he's played by Sam Rockwell, which I think adds to it. I mean, he's a phenomenal actor. He's one of my favorite actors. But I think what's happening in the script and the story there is it's showing that people are three-dimensional and that there is ability to change. And they picked the most topical thing you possibly could pick, which is a racist cop. And they show that you could like them.
In fact, you don't like him, right? He
For
has
most-
like an
mo-
arc.
Most of the film, you don't
Yeah.
actually like him.
He grows on you throughout the film.
Yeah, and
they force you to like him, kind of.
he's kind of an idiot for most of the film.
Exactly.
You know, and he actually doesn't achieve his goal. They don't achieve their goal. By the end of the film, it's still questionable about what they're even going to do. And
They're
it's
not great people.
They're not good people, but they're people. And it's a surprising film for contemporary audience.
Yeah, I think that's what like strikes me. You know how like it's very strange that the time really shows which movies are good.
Right.
You know.
Right.
The movies that's what's the expression? A stand of time.
Test of time.
Test of time. Stand the test of time. It's like, you know, when Driving Miss Daisy won the Oscar of, you know, Best Picture.
Right.
When Do the Right Thing came out. And
Right.
Do the Right Thing is the movie that's being taught in film schools.
Right.
You know, and not.
It's
Right.
a superior,
I've never seen.
It's a superior film.
Way superior
Yeah.
film. Yeah. And I feel like when I first saw Three Billboards, I didn't realize how much it actually stay in our conversation and how relevant it'll be, you know, years to come.
Yeah.
It came out like 20.
I think it's a very important film.
17 or
And in
something.
fact, I'm envious of the film. I think it's a good film.
Right.
It's a really special film, and I'm glad it got the recognition it did.
Right.
Rarely does the films that I like win the award that I want them to win.
Yeah. What'd you win? Best role, best, or is that what you mean?
One Best Picture, Three Billboards.
Three Billboards won Best Picture.
Yeah.
No way.
I'm almost positive it did.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey Google, Did Three Billboards win Oscars for Best Picture?
On the website Insider.com, they say it won 4 Oscars in all: Best Picture, Director, Score, and Production Design. Three Billboards won just 2 for Best Actress and Supporting Actor.
Okay.
And then
So it's nominated.
no, one Best Picture. It was nominated for those other 2.
Oh, okay. Okay. I missed,
It won 4
I asked
awards.
Google and I still don't
It
understand.
won
what said.
4 awards, including
Okay.
Best Picture.
Best Picture. Okay. Thanks,
And
Google.
then like a year or 2 later, like, you know, Black Panther and like Marvel movies are nominated.
Right.
So, you know, it is what it is. But I think Three Billboards achieved something that is kind of timeless, and it's that, back to our beginning of our conversation, is that, you know, characters don't have to be likable. You have to understand them.
Right.
And Sam Rockwell's character, I can't think of his name right now, is incredibly unlikable. He's negative. He's an idiot, you know. And by the end of the film, you're rooting for him and what the fuck is her name? What's Cohen's
McDowell.
Frances McDormand.
Frances McDormand.
Yeah, Frances McDormand to go do something that they don't even know is true.
Yeah, exactly.
Like something that is quite frankly negative. And it's a brilliant film, and I'm glad it got the recognition it did. I'm very happy.
Yeah, I guess, you know, surprisingly, that it was made. Like you kind of catch up with it. It's not obvious. It's not in your face, punching in your face.
Once again, we go back to the 70s. It's
right?
good.
Yeah, it's very subtle.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It's very subtle.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a great moment in the film. I guess we'll go here, where they play the song by the band the night they drove Old Dixie down. Okay. It's the scene where he realizes he could be a good detective because Woody Harrelson said, one day you'll be a good detective.
Right.
And he realizes this guy in the bar
Oh, yeah.
might be the fucking
guy.
killer that they're
Right.
looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And they play this song, and it's so fucking deliberate. It's exactly what I would have done. They played the song the night they drove Old Dixie down. It's by the band. It's one of my favorite songs. It's a great, beautiful song. And it's a song about the South. It's how the South perceived the end of the Civil War, which is, you know, untouched territory nowadays. Understandably, but it's untouched. And it's so deliberate. It's almost like giving him strength. You know, it's like it's saying that he has value, even though he isn't necessarily a good man. And these people have value. These people are real people, and they're not all terrible slave owners and just evil people. Everybody in the South was just an evil person. Not true. You know, people are people. And it's very moving. When it happens, if anybody watches the film, he's in the bar and he's trying to become the man he's supposed to be. He's trying to solve a case. He's trying to do something very selfless. And they're playing this song. And I'm like certain that it's because of what the director's intent is, you know, and what we're talking about.
I'll repeat myself, but I'm just kind of surprised how this movie came out unnoticed, and we, you know, in a time of like cinema drought, right? Yeah. We get something like that, like, and I didn't realize its significance when it came out. When we watched it, I was like, "Oh, okay, that was cool."
It grows on you.
It grows on you.
A few times,
Exactly. Yeah, I saw it twice, and I think after me and you talked about it more and more, I kind of started noticing its kind of geniusness.
Yes, it's pretty important.
Yeah, it's important movie.
In terms of like even like as a script to do what it's doing, it's pretty important to a film to be that honest and to be that real, you know, to go there. You know, I feel like a lot of films wouldn't even touch the territory that it's touching. Right. It's an unsolved murder. It's not resolved.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
It's about just because it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's never the purpose of the movie. It's kind of like
it's about these people. There's also some stuff that's like pretty on the nose, like when the last time she sees her daughter, she says, "I hope you die in I hope you get fucking raped and murdered." It's not like.
Yeah, I see.
It's not so outside the box.
Yeah.
That it's you know it's pretty on the nose.
Yeah.
Like
It doesn't stand out at first. That's what I
Right.
would say. It doesn't
Right.
stand out at first.
Right.
It's kind of like, oh, it looks like a generic film.
Yeah,
But then
and
once you start breaking it down,
it's pretty
like,
important.
Right.
I think it's important.
Let's have a little fun. Sure. One of my favorite movies of last decade is the movie we both love. It's called The Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
David O. Russell is an interesting guy. One of the last of the Mohican. One of the last
The
tours.
last of the Mohicans. You were saving that fucking line for a while.
You know, I think that's actually translatable. I think in Azerbaijan, in Russian, people always say that. Then nobody knows what that means. Like growing up, I've heard "Last of the Mohican."
They didn't have Mohicans over there.
They don't have Mohicans. We didn't even have that movie. Or nobody knows who, whatever the fuck guy's name is, that actor. Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yeah.
What's the guy's name? Who played the Last of the Mohican?
I don't know. Right.
Okay, it's the guy. It's the guy who retired. The P.T. Anderson's guy. Phantom Thread, There Will Be Blood.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis. He's the last. He's the guy. But it's just a line. It's just we adopt it as our proverb.
They're just
it
saying,
actually has a deeper meaning.
Yeah, they're just saying it over there.
It's the
Like,
same,
they don't even
yeah.
know what a fucking Mohican is over there.
We definitely don't. I don't know who Mohican.
Mohicans are a native
I
tribe.
understand. Yeah, I get it. But like, who are they? It's like Americans.
They're Americans.
Anyway, but David Russell, what do you think about that guy?
I think he's a really good filmmaker. I think he's really honest, and if I made films, I probably would make films like David O. Russell makes films, even if I didn't intend to make films that way, because I like his rawness, and I think it complements how I behave.
You want to talk about The Fighter?
The Fighter is one of the best films of the last 20 years. I mean, look, I said those two films before, and I feel like kind of bad that I didn't name a bunch of films. You know,
Yeah, you mentioned the Jojo Rabbit.
I mentioned Jojo Rabbit, and I mentioned Whiplash.
You still got time, right? We can get to them too. I just feel like talking.
We
about
don't
The
even have to
Fighter.
get to them. We don't even have to get to them.
Oh, but they're good movies.
But I just
like
feel
Jojo
bad.
Rabbit.
I just feel bad that
That you didn't speak
I
of the
didn't
other
say
ones?
these other
Well, there's
films.
more movies. There's not just two.
There's plenty of other
there's
films,
plenty,
but
yeah.
I just was thinking of those two, and I just feel bad that you're bringing up this film.
I'll just say that like The Fighter just became one of my favorite movies of all time. Period. If I had to pick like top 10 movies ever,
Right.
I love like The Fighter would probably be the most recent. Like from the recent era,
Right.
The Fighter would be one of them. It's just
It's
so perfect.
For me, it's one of the most enjoyable films I've ever watched.
It's
I
the
really,
most unorthodox boxing movie ever.
I really enjoy the film. And
Right.
when I was driving here, I was playing Back in the Saddle
Oh, really?
Again.
But I always feel like the boxing movie is a genre.
It is a genre.
It became a genre.
It's
and
a
very
subgenre.
Subgenre, I guess. Yeah, it's very similar to like the crime movies.
The sports film.
I guess, which are similar to like crime dramas. It's about like a rise and fall
Yes.
and blah blah blah, and
Well, the thing,
how much more difficult it is to stay on the top.
the major difference between the sports genre
Right.
and the crime genre is they're both about aspiration. But in the sports film, they usually achieve it
right
because they're through legitimate enterprise.
Right,
and
right,
in the
right.
crime genre, they fail.
they fail.
lose,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Good point.
Scarface is the
Exactly.
quintessential
Exactly.
example. Yeah.
Exactly. Which is another cool movie. We should talk
Oh, I
about.
love talking about Scarface. I mean, I could talk about Scarface all
gotta
day.
talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
Scarface.
yeah.
But it's a boxing movie, but yet it's able to do something new and different. Where first of all, it's a real depiction of the life of
Mickey Ward.
Mickey Ward, yes. And funny enough, as a kid, I got into boxing on like, and people from Azerbaijan would definitely connect, but we had a period of time for a couple of years from when I was like 12, 13, where they started showing. And that's really it, right? You absorb what you watch on TV, and we just had it.
I mean-
we had like 13 channels growing up.
When I grew up, I was into Rocky, and I
yeah.
actually liked boxing as well.
Oh, really?
I wanted to be a boxer for like a little period
wow.
of time when I was a child. I never told you that, but
Wow,
yes,
I never knew
I
this.
did.
Wow,
I
that's
did.
fun.
Yeah, I actually bought like my stepdad bought me a boxing unit where you could like
Really?
fight it. Yeah,
Wow.
I really like Rocky. Yeah, yeah.
That's
Continue.
cool.
Continue. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
wanted
yeah,
to relate
that-
to it.
That's interesting. But I actually saw Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward fight, which is like
That's awesome.
absolutely like famous for their.
That's that's the big fight.
Exactly, that's the big fight, and we don't even see them in the movie, right? And which is like insane because it's like. It's an interesting choice. A director comes in and we're not going to show you your best years. Right. We're going to show you. We're not going to get there at all. Right. Not only that, we're going to make it barely about boxing. We're going to make it about your family. Right. But I'm skipping a lot, and we can talk about more like nitty gritty family stuff. When it gets to the boxing, they ask the HBO to shoot the boxing scenes. Right. It looks like the boxing.
It looks like
It looks the most authentic boxing scenes. Yeah. So as a genre and as a craft wise, filmmaking wise, they do it like amazing.
They choose to do it like unlike before.
Exactly, unlike before. So they also because some the assumption here is that it's almost not a boxing movie, yet it is. You know what I mean? Like
I have a question for you.
Yeah, let's go.
What is the heart of the film, though? That's what I'm always searching. I'm a screenwriter. Okay,
right.
So that's what I'm always searching for. I'm always searching for what's the heart of the film. What's the best scene in the film? You're not wrong, obviously. It's not a test. I'm just asking.
I think we might have talked about.
I think you know what I'm.
Yeah. But my favorite scene is it's just so many emotions, just like going through this. But it's when. Christian Bale's character Dickie talks to his to Amy Adams' character.
That's correct. That is the right answer, and Zeke got it right because he knew. That is the best scene in the film, and it might be one of the best scenes in the last 10 years. Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful scene.
It's when Dickie talks to he goes back.
Would you come down, Charlie? Would you come down, Charlie? Would you please come down? Is that a Cocker Spaniel?
When he realizes finally that. He's clean now. He's not consumed, and he's not blinded by the drugs and by that kind of obsession. Yeah. He just wants to help his brother, right? And he wants him. He wants to hang out with him. He loves his brother. He wants to be important for him, like he always been. He's dependent, but he changed. Yeah.
And what's most important about it is we're going back to kind of like my thesis of what I like about films as your personality of the week. That's kind of my thesis is these moments. And that is a fucking moment.
When he walks down the street, he gives the cake.
He compromises his value.
Exactly.
For someone else. He changes for the first time in the whole film to say, I don't care if you think I'm a fucking piece of shit. We got to do this for Mickey. It's his time. It's a fucking amazing. And then he says the most amazing line that makes me cry. If you put it on right now, I'll get emotional. I might hold it in front of you without the cameras, but I'll get emotional. Is when he says, did I knock down Sugar Ray Leonard? He says, yeah, you were the best. You're my hero. I was.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's like, that's the...
When he walks down the street, he gives the cake to the people.
And he goes...
Yeah, that's it.
As a screenwriter, as a storyteller, as a person who's been doing this since I'm a little boy, Luke, Michael, Dick Eklund, we get to this moment. This is what film is about. Is these moments. Is building up the tension, building up the story, up into these moments where you have catharsis, which is just like real life. It's just like if me and you had a fight or somebody, and we just finally say what we have to say. And we just get through it. This is what life is, and this is what film is. Showing these human moments. And they don't show it in a pretentious way in the film. It's shot in a very serious, simple way. It's shot up from above. It's shot from the side.
Yeah.
He walks down the street. It's not like the film is not trying to compromise what's happening.
No.
It's not pretentious at all.
No.
And he just says, I was. And you're like, holy shit. Finally. Like, the heart of the film happened. And the rest of the film is catharsis.
Yeah,
You're just like,
exactly.
You got through it.
And I think it's one of the best performances in movie history.
I would agree.
That Christian Bale's performance. If there was top 50, top 100, whatever.
If it's on a list somewhere, it should be there.
It should be there.
I agree.
And nothing to take away from the guy who is not always the best is
Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg. He does amazing job.
He's phenomenal.
He's really good.
Honestly, if he was only in films like that, then you wouldn't think of him as like, oh, Mark Wahlberg's in this film. He's very good in that film.
Yeah, I've heard that he was actually like pushing for this film. He really wanted to play Mickey Ward. I mean, he's a powerful guy, and I mean, like
He could
just
get
his
the
position.
influence of
Exactly. He's very, and he's not like a bad actor. He can do stuff. You know, he was in Scorsese movies. He has experience working with the good guys, and he just kind of like has that like a superhero, like Matt Damon power.
Talking about Tom Cruise,
Right,
kind
Tom
of thing.
Cruise,
Yeah,
Matt
yeah,
Damon. I was
yeah,
thinking,
yeah.
exactly. But a great film.
It's
sure.
a phenomenal film, and I regret not saying it.
All right, let's
It's
go
one of my
to-
favorite films. It's one of my favorite.
yeah.
One of my other favorite films is David O. Russell's Silver Linings Playbook, which is a seminal film for me that has influenced how I write films.
Interesting, right? Tell me about it, because I like that movie. I'm not like in love with that film. I'm not like, you can put a fighter anytime on. I'm ready to watch it.
Right.
Silver Lining Playboy is not one of them.
I mean, I think on a personal level, I relate to it in a lot
Mm-hmm.
of ways. I don't really want to get into that. But I relate to it. I just think the performances are phenomenal. I think. I literally have no complaints about Silver Linings Playbook. It's exactly the film I would make if I can make a film. In fact, I wrote a film
Yeah, that's
that is similar to Silver Linings Playbook. If you had to pick a film, like you read my script, it's similar to Silver Linings Playbook. It's a very important film to me. I can't say it's like the best film of the last 10 years. It's not like that. It's just you brought up David O. Russell, and I think that he's a phenomenal filmmaker who makes really raw, marketable films. I mean,
Right.
not unfortunately, but like fortunately for him, they're marketable. And he gets like a good cast and stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. The one of his first film, I think, I'm not 100% sure on all of this, but the movie that he went to Sundance with, or Tribeca might have been, I don't remember, but something with a monkey. There's a monkey in the name of the film. It's from the 90s. I saw that film once, and here's what I have to say. The movie is about this young boy. He's like a teenager who really grew up with his dad and hasn't really, doesn't have a great like deep relationship with his mom.
Yeah.
But she gets like injured where she can't walk for a while, and he takes care of her. Do you know anything about this?
I know the film.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And he basically, she's like a hot,
He has like
woman,
relationship,
and
with
he has
her
like
mom.
a sexual relationship with
yeah.
her, right? It's so fucked up on the paper. So if I had to say like geniusness of David O. Russell, like when it started, and that's where you start studying him. I feel like if there's ever like a class, that's like a movie that you figure out how he
examine the
does
whole
it.
canon. You have to examine his whole canon.
Right,
yeah.
right. But like, he makes it look okay.
Yeah.
He somehow achieves it where you don't feel dirty, you don't feel perverted.
Yeah.
I don't know how to achieve that. Like from top of my head, like I have no idea how to do it. That's a virtuoso filmmaking to me.
Let's
Or writing.
I would compare it to Joker.
Okay.
I mean, on surface level, that's no
Sure.
comparison. But I don't think that Todd Phillips could achieve that.
Yeah, probably.
That's what I'm trying to say. Is that like I think that Todd Phillips is very surface level, and he doesn't have the warmth, he doesn't have the depth to approach that material in a very honest and not like this is weird, sarcastic kind of way. And I think David O. Russell probably, was honest with himself and was able to do that. And that comes from the director. I if I had to
that's a good
attribute
point,
director stuff, it's not always like the shots. People say, "Oh, who directed this film? It looks like this."
Yeah,
It's not the shots. That's when you study film, it really isn't. That's the cinematography and who they choose. It really is like the feeling of the film, and that's why I brought Joker up.
Right.
Is David O. Russell was able to approach that material in a very genuine way. And someone like Todd Phillips couldn't.
Yeah. It's very interesting, but like a lot of times people don't attribute the fact that directors actually have a lot to say into the script.
Right.
Unless it's like a David Mamet's play,
Right.
where there's no changes to anything,
Right.
and I don't know if it matters who directs those films. Unless it's that, director has a lot to say in the script, and one of the best examples is like The Shining, right? Let's say,
Right.
Stephen King hates fucking his least favorite movie out of all movies based
It's
on his books is The Shining, right? And where Kubrick was like, okay, like this works maybe in the book, in a novel,
Right.
This does not work in film. We have to do it differently.
Right.
That's a whole nother conversation. And funny enough, Tarantino talks about it in his new book that he wrote based on the novel of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right.
There's a lot of scenes that are not in the film.
Right.
And he's fucking the creator of both. So he acknowledges that.
It takes a lot of will to like not
Exactly.
push that shit. That's a separate conversation.
It's separate discussion. But all I'm going to say is that like directors sometimes are seen only by like visual, masters.
It's really not that. I honestly, who I think is probably the most obvious proponent of this is Spielberg. If you really study Spielberg, because Spielberg is the best at working with actors. That's what I always take away from Spielberg. It's not the visuals, because his visuals aren't always symmetrical. There isn't a canon to his visuals. He uses different cinematographers.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you watch Spielberg films, you go from like Duel to Jaws, right? That's already two different feels, right?
Interesting.
And then you go from Jaws to E.T. and then you keep going, right? Close Encounters, and then you go all the way to
you're right. Yeah, I never thought of that.
Right,
Yeah.
it's not the visuals that can combine them, right? But it's the work with actors. And it's the feeling of the film. You could always tell a Spielberg film because he's got a lot of heart.
But not for the visual.
It's not for the visual. It's for the heart. And what Spielberg brings
and
is
not the type of movie also.
No, it's not. He makes blockbusters. That's what Spielberg.
Spielberg, for sure.
He makes classics, as Jack Nicholson would say. He makes classics. But he makes these films where there's genuine heart. I mean, Jaws, I think, is one of the best films ever made. I really do. I really love Jaws. You might disagree.
I don't have a lot of opinion on it.
I understand. But I mean, for the 70s, once again, all the best films were made in the fucking 70s. Fuck Citizen Kane. I think Citizen Kane's great, but like all the fucking best films were made in the 70s. Jaws is one of the best films ever made, and it's the first blockbuster, right? Different conversation. But there are some moments in Jaws where Spielberg it's Spielberg. It's not the writing even. I mean, they probably fucking ad-libbed it. I mean, we know that the scene with Quint when he does the mini USS in Minneapolis, the speech when he does the speech about the bomb, the Hiroshima bomb.
Okay.
Right? He wrote that. It wasn't in the script.
Spielberg wrote it.
No,
the actor.
Robert Shaw wrote it.
Okay.
And he let him write it, right? It's his work with actors. And one of the best scenes you could watch with working with actors, I mean, how he does this is with the child. When Brody is so upset and he's sitting at the table and he's drinking and he does the whole... And then his son's copying him. And he does like this and he goes... And he goes, give me a kiss because I need one. I mean, that's director. That's not, you can't write that and hope, unless you wrote it and you directed it. You cannot hope that happens. Spielberg is known for that. And he's able to do it. I mean, like, look at the Star Wars prequels, which people don't love. I actually have grown appreciation for them. People don't love them. George Lucas shouldn't be directing films. He's a creator. But then you look at Indiana Jones, right? Indiana Jones 4, not a great film. Good performances in the film, though. There's some real heart in that film.
That's what you mean.
Okay? Because Spielberg's there. Spielberg is good with the actors. He knows how to, I don't know, he brings that warmth. I don't know what he has, And if there's a through line, I'm telling you, go to E.T., go to Close Encounters, go to Jaws, go to Saving Private Ryan. There's this through line of emotion that he brings out, and that's the director.
But I always like kind of I'm fascinated by and like I enjoy and cherish the difference between the novel and the film. Like I think it's it's a very different medium, and that's why a lot of adaptation of a lot of classical literature is very tough because they're just such different animals. They were never made to be on captured on screen. Almost like you talk about there's never been like a great Crime and Punishment
it's been adaptation,
but they're kind of suck because the crux of it is in the monologues. You kind of have to fucking listen, read to these guys talk and talk and talk, and it's like, how do you do it visually? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't think it should be answered. Like some things maybe don't need to be depicted in film. But another good example for me, and I don't think you've seen that movie, but I'm gonna just spoil it, is Christine. I really like that film, the John Carpenter movie. It's also based on Stephen King,
Stephen King,
actually,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
like, but I'll just say this. It's not really a spoiler, but I read the book because I was like, early on, I used to think that I really like Stephen King. Like as a young boy, I was like, I just love his movies based on his books. So I thought I liked Stephen King. But when I actually started reading him, I read It, I read Christine, I read Carrie, a couple other things. I realized I actually don't like his novels, like at all. They're
like his
boring to me.
adaptation.
I like his adaptation of the films. Now, in Christine, there's one little difference, but it's so significant. And I think I don't like the novel at all. And I absolutely love the film. And it's the car in the novel is possessed by the ghost.
Right.
In the film, the car is a character of its own. It just has a soul.
Okay.
So, and it's in love. So ultimately, it's a love story.
Right.
Like, the film is a
Right.
love story about this young boy who was like a nerd and kind of loser, and he falls in love with this car, and they have a relationship
Right.
where the car gets jealous and of other girls or whatever. In the movie, in the novel, I'm sorry, it's kind of just like, oh, the previous owner was. It's like Pulp Fiction, you know.
Right,
It's
right.
just kind of like it doesn't carry anything else.
Right.
That's director's decision. It was John Carpenter who made that decision to change that, and that makes like hundreds, like it makes it a huge difference.
Yeah.
Like brings something completely different.
It kind of changes the story dynamically just by doing that one thing.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And it works in the novel, I guess. Like for what it is, it just works. Like how many books Stephen
Well,
King has
people always
written?
ask me this: is that oh, you're a writer, right? Okay, so what's the difference between the book and the movie? And the simple answer, is this: is that every scene in a film needs to have conflict, and every scene in a book doesn't, right? Okay,
Right.
it's a simple answer, but it's not always simple to translate that, right? Because a book could spend pages upon pages just
People talking.
of people feelings.
Sure.
How do you show that in a film, right? I mean, if you read the Godfather book compared to the movie, it's very similar, but the movie's better, right? Because it just shows what's happening, and you have to catch up to Michael. But in the book, you know what Michael's thinking.
Yeah.
That's really the difference, right? I mean, it's a very simple answer to a very complicated question.
Right.
Right, there's a lot of facets in there, like we said, John Carpenter made the decision that ultimately changed the dynamic of the entire story,
Yeah.
which basically makes it almost like a different story.
Right.
Even though it's the same story, like if Michael for some reason was very into his culture at the beginning of the film, it would change the dynamic of the story. It wouldn't be like a guy who is completely different is different at the end.
Right. I think I have something like that might kind of make sense.
Sure.
I was listening to this podcast, Lex Friedman's, I think. He had like Yeonmi Park on, which is like a woman from North Korea who like escaped basically. She's like a 28-year-old woman, wrote a book. She was like on JP's podcast. She's like doing like rounds. She wrote
I think
a
I
book.
know who she is
Right.
actually. Yeah.
Anyway, it's not really about her, but you hear a lot about like North Korea and like the difficulties of living there and the insane starvation period in the 90s after Soviet Union collapsed, because Soviet Union stopped providing. So they had like real starvation where she talks about, eating bugs. Like
they
and
literally
getting her
didn't
nutrition.
have resources.
They literally
to eat.
had like real starvation where rice was a luxury to them, right? And one thing is like you hear that, and I just told it to you in a matter of like 10 seconds. Yeah. And you're like, okay. The other thing is listening to the podcast for 2 hours and listening to her talk about it leaves completely different kind of impression on you.
Yeah.
So the same thing happens with the books. You read a book in a matter of days. It depends how fast a reader you are. It could take you weeks. Some people read for months.
Right.
A book. Movies like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So you have to leave the same amount of the same kind of imprint on you.
You're getting to
in a
something
matter
here.
Right.
Yeah.
So that I think that's the basic crux of it. And to emphasize this, I also don't think like one of the greatest like writers who is I think, like, whose work also should never be put on screen is Leo Tolstoy, right? And like War and
Right,
Peace
right,
is infamously ginormous,
Right.
And where the script of it could be written in one paragraph.
Well,
Nothing happens in the movie.
to touch on
In
both,
the book,
yes.
you know,
The whole
yeah.
script could be literally written. I mean,
Exactly.
the film could be done in 15 minutes.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like I mean, very good point. But to touch on a little bit of what you were saying is that like a film has to be definitive. A book doesn't.
Yes.
That's really, I mean, like,
Correct.
even if a film could be like kind of like definitive subjectively, a film has to almost kind of be a little objective in that sense. And that, like, there, you know, you could interpret what you're viewing, but there is only, you put it on DVD, that there's only one ending. But in a film, in a book, I mean, you know, I'm fascinated by Silence of the Lambs. And I love Silence of the Lambs, and I've read all the books. I got to Hannibal, which isn't a good movie. It's like a weird fucking movie, okay? But in the book, I love the book. I think the book is phenomenal. It's a really good book. And I actually didn't even imagine Anthony Hopkins, which is like, it's so definitive, right? Because a film, it's definitive. That's who is Hannibal.
Is that the Brett Ratner movie you're talking about?
But no, it's the Tony Scott film.
So it's the one after Brett Ratner?
No, it's the one before Brett
Oh,
Ratner.
I see.
It's
Okay.
the sequel to
Second
Silence of the
one.
Lambs,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Tony Scott film.
What's the third one called? I'm sorry.
Well, it's Hannibal is the third one, but like
It's
the
the
third
prequel.
movie made is Red Dragon,
Red Dragon.
which is actually
That's
the
what I was-
prequel to
Right,
Silence of the Lambs.
Right. Okay. Sorry.
That's the Brett Ratner film. Is that like Anthony Hopkins is so definitive, right? He's in all three films, and I mean he plays a phenomenal fucking role. He won the Oscar, and you know, if you think of Hannibal Lecter, you think of Anthony Hopkins.
Right.
But when I read Hannibal, even though I was so, I mean, I've watched Silence of the Lambs 75 times. I could quote it, you know. I got to the point where like I actually imagined Hannibal different, and I started to see the story different because it became very subjective, you know, where it wasn't like there was no visual associated with it. And I actually started to imagine like Joel Grey from Cabaret, or like just somebody like
else.
Dracula, like
Right.
fucking Bela Lugosi, you know, like as Hannibal instead of Anthony Hopkins. And I'm serious, I really was like, you know, he's doing things in the book where I'm just like, oh, this is not Anthony Hopkins. This isn't the movie. I'm imagining it differently. So, you know, books have the ability to do that.
Yeah, maybe that's why we kind of overall have trouble with kind of very objective experimental cinema. That's why it's not very acceptable, like, to us, because we like definitive
Yeah, we do like definitive things.
in
We like
especially
answers
in
to
cinema,
things.
in film particular. That's why there's not a big, you know, audience for Tarkovsky. It's not something you sell very easily.
We like a canon. We like things that are definitive. We like answers to questions. We like the story to end. A lot of people also, I mean, look, you know, this is a hot take, but I think a lot of people think of life narratively in a lot of ways. You know, like there are dramatic moments in their life, and then they get through those, and then, you know, I'm going to achieve a wife and kids and whatever. I'm going to achieve a husband and a house, whatever it is. You think of life in a very narrative sense, and life necessarily isn't narrative. You know,
Right.
it's very like not linear, and there's a lot of bumps, and there's a lot of moments, and you could have a flood, and all of a sudden the next week you have to take off work, and there's a lot of things that happen. You know, you get diagnosed with something that isn't in the script, and you have to fucking deal with that. So we like things that are like that end, you know, that have a definitive end point.
So tell me about Silence of the Lambs. It's one of your favorite movies. I kind of forgot about it, but now we got to it like accidentally. But I think it's a good time to talk about this. The relationship between Clarice and Hannibal Lecter.
Well, in a purely analytical stance, Clarice is a reversal of the conventional gender norms, right? Okay, so it's the 90s. It isn't today, right? She's a very
Which was more like kind of minded with it.
Right. It was more poignant then, right? Okay, now it's like it's almost become like a little trite, but then it was very empowering, and Clarice is still to this day a very empowering character, not necessarily to me as a man, but just in general. She's just a great character, right? Okay. And Hannibal Lecter is one of the greatest villains of all time, right? Because he's a villain in a way that doesn't necessarily interact with the protagonist, right? He puts her in positions that compromises her and makes her have to deal with things, but he doesn't actually pose a physical threat.
Yeah, so how is he a villain then?
Well, he's a villain because he preys on her emotions, right? And that's what kind of the film is a little bit about, right? In a way, because once again, look, the film is literally about her trying to save like a person who's being
Right.
Okay, that's literally what what the film is about. Okay,
Right.
but like there's something to say once again as a screenwriter and as the thesis of our fucking podcast and the things that I look for. The film climaxes for me when they have the conversation. And in
Which one? In the when he's closed.
Well, that's the funny thing because their whole fucking relationship is conversation.
Exactly.
They actually don't. They only have one moment where they actually touch.
Right.
Fingers.
Is that the conversation you're talking
The
about?
conversation in the last jail when he's in the bars and he's like,
Okay.
"Tell me about the lambs, Clarice." Right?
right,
Okay.
right.
That moment, that's the climax of the film for me. After that, she's kind of expressed what she had to express, and she just kind of goes through the motions of doing it. But that's the climax of the film. It's like it's one big therapy session.
Yeah.
For Clarice, right? And
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
and he's the
Yeah.
villain, right?
Yeah.
He's the antagonist, not the villain.
But he doesn't like.
He's the
okay.
antagonist of that,
Okay.
right?
Okay,
He's not the villain. Buffalo Bill is the villain of the film, right? She has to defeat the villain, but he's her antagonist more than Buffalo Bill is, right?
Is he her antagonist or is he her Yoda?
Well, that's a great question. In the scope of the films, Hannibal is her great friend, isn't he not?
Yeah,
Is he
that's
in
what
a
I
lot of
feel.
ways Hannibal loves Clarice.
Right.
Okay.
He likes her. He's
He-
interested in her.
Yes, he actually appreciates her frankness because Clarice is the most non-pretentious, very frank character in the film. Even her goal, which is to kind of aspire to be an FBI agent and get somewhere, is very surface layer. Even to her, that's how Hannibal knows it. He knows that like you just want to just rise in the ranks. Like you just want to get better and better and better. But like you're more than that. You actually care about this girl. You're not like a regular FBI agent. You want to save this girl because of your own trauma,
Right.
right? But he is the antagonist of the film. Because Buffalo Bill doesn't serve as the antagonist of the film in terms of the actual literature of the film, right?
no,
Like
yeah.
he's
It's
just
so
like
strange,
he's an
right?
obstacle.
This
like
is a complex script.
it's very This is why I like it.
Yeah.
Right? Because Hannibal's her antagonist, but he actually doesn't pose any physical threat to her.
Yeah.
And in a way, they like each other. She likes
Yeah.
Hannibal to a certain extent. Maybe she's not going to hang out with him, but she doesn't.
And we don't get into books. I know they have
No,
like
no,
a
no.
relationship.
I don't
or
wanna
whatever. We
go
just
there.
talk about the film.
You're right.
So
I
I
don't
just
wanna
want to
go
make
there.
sure
Yeah.
like we stay there.
If you watch Silence
don't
of the Lambs,
see it
just
coming.
if you
Yeah.
watch Silence of the Lambs, right?
Right.
There's a very clear moment, okay? And this is the most clear moment I think that Hannibal actually respects Clarice. Because Clarice is the only person with all her frankness and all her goodness and all her will, she tricks him. That's the real thing.
How? What are you
Okay.
talking about?
She proposes a deal for him
Okay.
where he could walk on the beach, he could swim in the ocean.
Oh yeah.
Right? And he believes her. He does believe her.
Okay.
Right? He uses it as an opportunity to escape, but that's aside. That's not that he's always trying to get escape. That's not
right.
that he just uses that as an opportunity. But he believes her and he tells her. He actually tells her, and Hannibal's always honest with her. He's because it would be rude to be dishonest. And he says, Anthrax Island. That was good, Clarice. Your idea? That was good. He's impressed that the only person who met his match was Clarice. And he likes that. At the end of the film, you know he likes that because he says to her, I have no plans to call on you, Clarice. The world's far more interesting with you in it. Meaning, like, I'm never going to kill you. Like, you're fine. Like, you never have to worry about me. So he likes her.
so ironic and beautiful.
It's so interesting. It's so fucking interesting that like this guy who immediately sees her as an up and coming girl that he could destroy her in 5 seconds, and he tries to a little bit, but the second somebody fucking throws cum on her face,
That's weird.
It's weird. It's weird.
The whole scene is weird. It's like a little like
he sees her as somebody who is
what the fuck's happening?
because the thing with Hannibal is he's an interesting villain, right? Right. Like I said, he's not really a villain of Silence of the Lambs. He's the antagonist. He's not the villain. Buffalo Bill is the villain.
Right.
But he's an interesting villain in that he doesn't really kill innocent people, right? He's not like an aimless monster like Michael Myers. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why you never get to dislike him.
No,
ever.
you always like him.
You always like
even
him.
when he's eating Ray Liotta's brain. You like
Well, I don't remember that far.
That's in Hannibal.
I feel like I've seen those once. I've seen both of them.
You don't have to watch it again.
Yeah,
You're right.
I just don't remember. I only remember the Philip Seymour Hoffman. Rest in peace.
Oh,
That's
please.
all I remember. And Ralph Fiennes like being weird.
But in that film, he's an antagonist too, right? And he doesn't even.
I really don't remember.
He doesn't actually do anything because the villain is once again a machination almost of him. Like he's like a doppelganger, like somebody who could.
And
who
you,
could
you
fight.
never liked Manhunter. Have you ever rewatched it like being like, and
Yeah.
you don't like it. I feel like Michael Mann is another guy who is like he came from the 70s.
No,
and
I get that. I get that.
I think he's a good filmmaker.
You know what I think? I think Manhunter is more like a TV film when I watch it. That's just the opinion I get. I just get it's low budget, and I shouldn't address it in that sense in our conversation about films and thesis and stuff. But I just see it as almost like a thesis film, like a film like we could show this on TV. It doesn't really achieve the goal of Manhunter that I don't want to say this, but I read the book and I would interpret it differently.
Right,
I'm not saying that Brett Ratner did it perfectly, but I'm just saying that there's almost like an elegance to these films that need to be brought to another level. I don't think any of the films did it as good as Silence of the Lambs. I think Silence of the Lambs did it very well.
But I also think I would assume I haven't read the books, but Silence of the Lamb does something of its own. Again, not something like the novel would do.
It does,
but it
does.
actually puts it to film in a cinema.
It does
format. Well,
not in the same way The Godfather does.
Okay.
I mean, it gets to the same thesis. I mean, there are things in the book that expound on what happens. They show a little bit more than what happens. It ends a little differently in the kind of a more definitive way. Like the book actually ends in a kind of very okay, there's not going to be a sequel. There doesn't really need to be a sequel. This could just be the end of this story, which I like. But The Godfather is a little more we can interpret this a little bit more.
Okay.
The Silence of the Lambs is a little more faithful.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to compare them, but yeah.
No,
that
I'm
makes
just
sense.
I'm just trying to say that it isn't they're omitting a lot of things.
Right.
It does a pretty faithful job.
Well, it's interesting enough, but Mario Puzo did work. Mario Puzo, right?
He wrote the script.
He wrote the script with I'm pretty sure they worked together. And
I mean, the things I'm talking about are more once again, the translation between film and novel. You literally can't show some things. That's my favorite thing to talk about is when people compare Harry Potter books, because everybody in our generation loves to compare Harry Potter books. The books are better. Why didn't they show Cedric Diggory? And it's
that's exactly why I brought up this conversation.
Right.
Like this kind of assumption that novel has to match the book.
It doesn't.
Correct?
It's an interpretation. It's one. It's literally. And it's also. It's imagine if you read the book and you made it a movie. It's one person.
Exactly.
Even with Friedkin's, it's a collaboration. That's still 100 people. Harry Potter reached the world. Okay, it reached Azerbaijan. Did it not?
Of course.
Okay. There you go. So it reached the world. Harry Potter is a book. You can imagine it in a million different ways. There's a lot of scenes where just things are happening that you can't translate to film. The films are 2.5 hours long each. Some of them are almost 3 hours long. Yeah. How the fuck long do you want this book, this movie to be? It'd be five. Every movie would be 5 hours long, and there'd be a lot of scenes where Harry's just fucking off in class. It would be boring. Yeah. And nobody understands. Every time I have to bring this up, I'm like, dude,
I'm
like
100% with you on the same page. That's the only reason why I brought this up, is that assumption that like film has to match it.
Yeah.
Film has to do it differently. And I think like one of the best examples of that is, for me, the reason I brought up Tarantino to it is because he is creator of both. He wrote the book and he wrote the script and he made the fucking film. And
Right.
he still made a lot of differences.
Right.
Like the book has scenes. By the way, the book does confirm that Brad Pitt killed his wife.
okay.
Right. I mean,
We all assumed that.
we all assume, but the
Yeah.
movie has that opened.
Right.
The book confirms it, which in the movie, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't
It
have
doesn't
to
matter.
be there.
Where would you put that?
Exactly. It doesn't have to be there.
That's like information,
Correct.
right?
Exactly.
And a film doesn't have time for information. You have to mix information with dialogue. You have to use it as conversation. What's the fucking word? Almost like I'm fucking 4 drinks in. I can't think of the fucking word. What is that
are you
word
doing?
called? When it's called please don't use this.
I am gonna use.
Please don't fucking use this. Jesus Christ. What is the word called when you have to relay information through a character?
Exposition.
Exposition.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I literally, the word was escaping me for a second.
Yeah.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
Exactly. It's like unnecessary exposition.
Right.
Yeah. It's the film is more interesting when we like
Right.
guess that.
Right. And we go back to
The
the,
book
Exorcist.
doesn't need it.
We go back to the Exorcist, and there's moments in the Exorcist that leave it open to just
Yeah.
like figure out what you want.
Exactly.
Figure
yeah.
it out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just more interesting. It's more interesting to play that game. The book, it's just not necessary. In the book, you're reading it, you're sitting, you're spending so much time. Like, if you're ever confused by
It
that,
answers the
it's like-
question for you. You know,
Right. Let's talk about Scarface.
it's just like hard cut. Okay, what do you want to talk about Scarface?
This is the filmmaker, Brian De Palma, made this odd films. You know, the movie Scarface. I didn't live through that era, neither did you. But apparently it wasn't received well by neither fans or
No, it wasn't.
critics. So I don't know what was the deal.
It's a cult classic.
Cult classic.
now.
Do you think it had to do something with the 80s PC correctness? You know, those films that
Yeah,
weren't...
yeah. I think that once we hit the 80s and the Reagan era, like for some reason, the political correctness became
Like The Thing was
became
also like the big, you know,
yeah.
kind of...
became important again. I don't know why, because you have like pretty. There's some good films in the 80s, like
Yeah.
you know, and like they're not like
Not as
that.
many.
No, not like the 70s, but you know, I'm just thinking of a few off the top of my head. You know, like you have like Platoon. You know, you have Scarface. You have
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket. That aren't kind of they're kind of skating the line. You know, they
Right.
they play with compromised characters. That's what we're talking about, really. People
Right,
that are
right.
compromised and you know aren't necessarily politically correct or likable.
Yeah. Anti-heroes and all that.
I mean, Scarface really is like kind of how they would do the gangster movie now. Is like it's the gangster movie summed up, because Scarface is literally about aspiration, right? About a guy who just wants more and then he loses because eventually the gangster has to fail, right?
Right.
I think it's that De Palma made it an opera.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's really what I think is special about Scarface. Because otherwise, it's just a gangster film, right? There's nothing really special about it, right? You know, it's like you go to Goodfellas, which we can get to eventually. But, like, you know, the gangster film is pretty simple. It's like the sports film, like you were talking before, right? It's just about aspiration, right? Like, there's nothing really unique about wanting money and the American dream and then just like eventually failing because you become a glutton.
Right.
Right. Okay. But De Palma takes this depiction of Oliver Stone, by the way. Oliver Stone wrote the script to Scarface.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, you're right.
Yes, he did.
I actually knew that somewhere.
And he takes this very contemporary, because it was a part of the zeitgeist of the time, because it was made in like, let's say 86. I'm probably wrong about that. You could put that up on the fucking screen. It'd be like 84, you know, whatever.
I thought it was like later.
It might have been 80. I don't know.
It came out like 1981 or something.
Maybe 83.
83 maybe, yeah.
It wasn't 81. It was like 83 or 86. But so it was the zeitgeist of the time, right? Because like in 1980, Fidel Castro did that, and there was a
Right.
lot of Cuban crime and shit in Florida, right? So at the time it was like if the Trump era, like there would be stuff now, right? So but the real crux of De Palma's depiction of the script is that it's an opera. He makes it into an Italian opera, right? Because he makes it almost like very dramatic. He over dramatizes the entire production to the point of almost like Shakespeare. Like it ends in a very like, not that Shakespeare ended with a gunfight, but like it ends almost like a Shakespearean tragedy, right? Because like it's all leading up to Tony becoming a haza, as Frank would say, right? He's a glutton. He's a pig that don't fly straight no more, and it's foreshadowed very dramatically early on in the film. And then the whole film is just leading up to Tony just fucking up. And then he has this big gunfight. That's the whole film. It would probably be kind of, middle of the road if it wasn't shot by De Palma and made by De Palma in a very, operatic way. He makes it into like this kind of, 16th, 17th century opera. That's the way I look at the film.
Yeah. I remember writing a paper on it, actually. I think it was a genre class or something. And my thesis was, and I'm pretty sure it's a common thing, but comparison of Scarface to the horror genre.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And it's not like a horror movie, but it has the horror tropes a little bit.
Yeah.
Imagery, especially with the
It's the semantics of horror.
The scene with the chainsaw.
Yeah.
Like that's just horrific to the horror movie level.
And the vulgarity
horrific.
of how Tony commits crime. When he runs out in the street, he's like, "Your turn, motherfucker!" And he shoots him. Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely the like him becoming the monster by the end.
Yeah.
Where he actually like just consumes every bullet. That
he almost won't die.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And the only way he does die, and it's so emphasized with this random killer assassin character who we just get to know in that basically last scene. He only can be stabbed in the back.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And that's another like almost like a crime drama.
It's almost like a metaphor for what the criminal is afraid of, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah. That's how I always read it, and that's the only way he dies. And
right.
The world, whatever the line is, the world to yourself.
The world's yours.
The world is yours.
Yeah. It's kind of like a bigger. I think it doesn't actually contradict what I was saying because it's almost an operatic way of looking at.
No,
it's
just adding to
right,
it.
Right. So it's almost
a lot
like,
of things.
It's a horror film,
layered movie.
Yeah, it's a good film. It's made by De Palma, another student of New Hollywood.
Exactly.
So it's got a lot of layers to it, and I think everything you just said is what we learned and makes sense to me. It works.
Right. It's interesting. I haven't really studied like De Palma per se, but I always was intrigued by what Tarantino had to say about him. I don't know if you ever heard, but he's not a fan of Tarantino. Is not a fan of Hitchcock.
Really?
Yeah, and he believes that De Palma is what Hitchcock could have been if he lived. He had another like 20, 30 years.
Huh.
Interesting. But I always found that intrigued. But it made me kind of wanted to explore De Palma more, but I kind of haven't yet. Maybe later on, but
I haven't watched this whole canon.
But like even the movie like Carrie, like he just tells the story so straight to so. It's such a simple film, like Carrie, and he almost doesn't add more to it, and that's what makes it kind of great. Like that, it's the fact that it's so small and contained. I don't know how well you remember it, but nothing happens in the fucking movie. And the story is the same. It's a very straight up story, but it was nominated for a bunch of
I'm trying to think of it like
Oscars.
Carlito's Way.
Right, I haven't seen that.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of that, and it's pretty straightforward.
Right.
It's another like Scarface, another crime drama. It's not operatic, but it's got some drama to it. It's another gangster film.
Right.
The gangster can't win. That's really the biggest thing with the gangster film. So like what you said makes sense with the horror stuff, but it's like no matter what the gangster film is, unless it's a fucking comedy, the gangster can't win.
Well, I wish you. I know you. I don't think you've seen it. I really want to get your opinion on it because you like these gangster movies so much. Like one of your favorite movies is Godfather. You really like Scarface. You really like Goodfellas, which we can talk about. But I really wanted to watch The Most Violent Year. I don't think you have seen.
No, with Oscar Isaac.
Yeah,
No.
I thought that's like.
Does he win? Well, you already answered it.
I don't remember. I actually don't remember. I gotta rewatch it, but I remember watching it, and it was kind of like gangster movie 2.0. Like it gave me that impression because there was a lot of things that happened. Oh, first of all, there's no violence in the movie ever.
The only way the
And
gangster...
that's kind of the ironic even like to the name, but it does things a little differently. There is corruption, but it's not. Things are done very, very differently, and I wish this thing was explored more. And
Here's also the thing: is that the gangster film is kind of a conservative story, right? Because like the gangster doesn't win, so corruption cannot win.
right.
Right? So it's kind of like a horror. Most horror films up until very present are very conservative stories because horror has to be destroyed, right? Unless it's like a little postmodern and there's like a little cliffhanger and like horror continues. But most of the time horror is destroyed, right? By the virgin or by like some kind of,
Right.
innocent
Innocence, yeah.
creature. So if the gangster wins, it's probably like a postmodern, newer take. That's what I would.
I gotta rewatch it.
Immediately
That's not a
say.
fair image to talk about that movie. I gotta rewatch it.
Yeah, rewatch it. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll rewatch it with you.
Right. But what about Goodfellas? Like that's a postmodern, not a postmodern. I would say like a, what would you say? Like a new look.
It's not
like
even.
a fresh look.
It's not postmodern. You know, I mean, like people would say it's postmodern. It's really not. It's just like that's how Scorsese sees films. He sees it almost like a documentary.
Mhm.
It's not postmodern. That's just how he.
Do you
sees
think Scorsese he's what's the right word? Like I don't want to say obsessed, but do you think he's like very interested in that like lore of like?
Well, I have a lot of similarities to Scorsese, right? Because I've come from a Italian American background, and I think that when you come from the background, you just have a fascination with your culture. You see it.
But
all.
it's more like mythical.
It's more mythical. That's if you romanticize it.
Right.
I think Scorsese.
You think he does?
I think Scorsese was born in Manhattan and stuff, and he might have seen it a lot more than I did. I was also born after the era of even Goodfellas, right? So, there's a certain amount of pride, like the Italian American gangster. It's kind of interesting because it's kind of like a pop culture phenomenon, but it's also a very like cultural thing that people just like are aware of.
Yeah, it's also a really fucked up thing that happened.
It's a super fucked up thing. But somehow like people like admire it. It's like I don't see that in a lot of other cultures. It's just like a strange thing. It's like very specific to the Italian American that people are aware of that part of the culture, right? Like remember Richard Pryor said, like, look, not every Italian person is a part of the mafia, but if they aren't, they're working for them. Like they're not. I just think it's just a strange part of our heritage. And I just have like a unique connection to it,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have your thing that you like, so it's just like, so maybe Scorsese and me like have like grown up with that kind of fascination. It's a terrible thing.
Yeah, but okay, what's terrible thing? Like the fact that you had it, like there's nothing terrible about exploring it and talking.
No,
about it, right?
no. I just mean like the crime,
Right? Of course.
Yeah.
I mean that almost comes like I remember my like professor, like Italian cinema professor, was like he almost made us feel bad, tried to make us feel bad for liking characters of The Godfather. Which is like, well, don't forget, they're all terrible people. They're all like
that's
scums.
No, I don't agree
and
with
he
that.
was like Italian guy with super Italian. Like,
I don't agree with that. No,
but my point is like that's almost comes unsaid. Clearly nobody aspires to.
Yeah,
be that,
I didn't mean
right?
that.
Like,
I didn't mean that.
It's just throwing it out there. But I like the that American, like that's what I like. Scorsese feels to me, it's kind of like, you're right, it's not postmodern, but it's look at your heritage and criticizing it for what it is, but still showing it some love, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, look, so like people always like talk about the Godfather and Goodfellas like in the same sentence, and it's like it's totally different.
It's very
completely different. It's not the same thing at all. The Goodfellas is literally about the bottom of the barrel. Godfather is about kings. It's about Shakespeare, right?
Right.
So they're already about separate stories, but the Godfather is not real. The Goodfellas is a little more realistic in that it's about like what the grunts do when you're a criminal. Michael is never really seen doing anything criminal in The Godfather. He's more like a king making decisions for his empire. They're not relatable. Henry, okay, is very relatable, not likable. I like him. I think it's subjective if you like him. He's not likable like Forrest Gump.
Right.
But he's likable. I like him. I think he's a funny guy. I like Henry Hill. He's somebody I would be fascinated by in real life because he's such a fucked up guy.
Michael Corleone, you probably wouldn't want to stand next to him.
Michael Corleone is a scary guy.
Scary guy.
He's a scary guy.
That's interesting.
But there's something admirable about Michael. There's nothing admirable about Henry Hill.
Right.
Henry Hill is a follower. Henry Hill is very realistic in a way. He's
Very
like a
good
person
distinction.
you know. What'd you say?
It's a very good distinction.
Yeah.
It matters.
Michael is a scary individual. Vito is a person you want to be. He's almost got like a Messiah-like complex until you realize that he's a gangster. You have to always remember that he's a gangster. But Michael is a scary individual that is hard to relate to, but he's also very relatable in that he's a son and that we all want to surpass our fathers, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to be better. Henry, incredibly relatable, very unlikable, right? Because we don't like ourselves, right? Because we're all like, when you go outside and you see somebody having something better than you, we have envy.
Well, but also, but unlikable by the end, we all want to be Henry when we're kids.
But that's why the people like the Italian American gangster. That's why people like the gangster story in general. Carlito's Way is about a Puerto Rican gangster. It's not always Italian American, but that's why people like the gangster, because we all inherently want the easy route, and the gangster always takes the easy route. But like in The Bronx Tale, which is a film that I've grown to not love as much, but I like it. I just think the performances are kind of bad.
Yeah.
The working man is not a sucker. The working man is the real man. The gangster is a piece of shit because you ultimately destroy yourself.
Yeah, I feel like that movie juxtaposes it enough.
Right.
Where, you got the father, the dad who kind of like is constant reminder of between the good and the bad.
The easy route, it's almost like Original Sin. Like original sin in terms of following the serpent, right?
Yeah.
The easy route is always the path of destruction because there is no easy route because life is hard and everything's hard.
Yeah, it's difficult to be a good person.
It's difficult to be a good person.
Exactly. To go and get rob person.
Exactly.
Than, getting
it's
a
easy.
job.
It's easy to pull the trigger. It's hard to earn it for yourself. And that's a whole different conversation about society. But to earn it for yourself comes with pride. To take it comes with nothing. So we all aspire to be Henry at the beginning of the film of Goodfellas because Henry is making money. He's making more money than his father, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and he's funny. He's hanging out with people that are cool and interesting.
He has a protection from all these guys, and
but
they treat him like the way they give him they reward him with that protection, with that kind of status.
What's funny about Goodfellas is that there's a thesis to Goodfellas, right? And it's almost like not the thesis of what Scorsese is saying, right? Because I would say that in The Godfather, Coppola wants us to know that Michael is making the wrong decision and is kind of going down the wrong path and ultimately dooming the family, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel like Scorsese is letting us witness something, okay? And what's the thesis of the mafia? Never rat on your friends and always keep your mouth shut. And how the movie ends.
Right.
He rats on his friends and he doesn't keep his mouth shut, right? And you're trained almost, I mean, us from New York and our kind of culture, and like that's shameful. Like what he does is almost shameful. Like he betrays his ethics because that's what the whole film is about, right? It's the ethics of this disgusting, primitive culture. But he kind of does the right thing, like in the long run of life. Like he does the right thing, right? He puts these guys away. But then the movie ends with like, I live the rest of my life like a schnook. Like he's not happy. Like he finally did the right thing his whole life. And he's like he feels like a scumbag. Like,
yeah. I guess that's what makes it great. Because the character is not fulfilled his dreams.
Right. So he does like a positive thing and he feels like shit about it.
Yeah, because he believes that.
He still believes it.
He still believes.
He still believes the lie.
Yeah. That's a good one.
And Scorsese is showing us the lie, right?
Yeah,
because
that's why they say that he kind of makes fun of the mafia, right?
I always think that that Scorsese is mocking the mafia.
Mocking the mafia,
Yeah, right. And people will disagree. People will say Scorsese admires the mafia. I'm like, no, he doesn't. He doesn't admire the mafia. He's mocking them. If you watch the film intently, if you watch the scene, they play Layla. They play the Derek and the Dominoes interlude, like at the end with the dun 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 dun, and he fucking kills. They kill all of his fucking friends. They kill the guy who was killing people. Right. They kill everybody. Who? What is this life about? It's about treachery and betrayal and dishonesty and bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. And it's the most honest depiction of what this life is about. It's the gangster life. It doesn't lead to a big shootout with Tony Montana. It leads to betrayal because it's all about survival because they're rats.
Which is kind of, coming back to it, kind of what Tony Montana does. It happens to him when he gets stabbed in the back. That's kind of what the metaphor we're talking about.
Exactly. So it's almost like a more fictional,
a different depiction of that.
Dramatic depiction of what like the worst thing that could happen to the mafia. But what does Henry say? He says, I know if I went down to Miami, I would never come back because Jimmy would have me whacked. Like, they would stab him in the back because it's all about betrayal. This is what the mafia is about. It's always about aspiration, and eventually you're going to be betrayed, or you're going to be destroyed, or you're going to become a glutton. You're going to become too much because you can't exist. Because the gangster, it's almost like a criticism of the American dream, is that the American dream is not achievable, which is a different conversation. But in terms of the gangster, you cannot achieve it.
How do you have a movie like Goodfellas how do you have a movie like Goodfellas in your head and like make it?
So I think that like Scorsese, like, he looks at the manuscript for the script, right, with Pileggi, and he sees it like a documentary. And Scorsese has made documentary before. He's made a few. And I think he wants to make the most honest depiction. Like, the story of Goodfellas doesn't translate directly to film because it's about a protagonist who doesn't really go through like much of a change. He just changes in the wrong direction, not in the way that like a film changes. Like, he doesn't like learn from the change. That's the thing. All right.
He just saved his ass.
He just saves his ass, right? Like, he just changes his direction to survive. So Scorsese wants to be honest to that. So he looks at the script and he looks at it as a documentary that he can make into like fiction. And he puts music, which is something I like to do. And he puts, montage, which is something he studied. And he makes us just like really live with the character. Instead of like viewing him, we live with Henry. Henry is the crux of every scene. There's very few scenes almost without Henry. And the only other character who gets real monologue is his wife, who's also a narrator of the film.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it's almost like a documentary, Goodfellas. That's how he does it. He uses like music and his contemporary values at the time to like dramatize somebody's very real account. That's how he did it. And it's how I probably would have done. And I love how Scorsese uses film. You know how like Scorsese supposedly uses music in film? When he reads the script, he just writes, we're going to use Derek and the Dominoes, like right here. And he just writes it next to, like Pelagi's writing the script. And he just writes it right on the script. Which is how I Scorsese, like Tarantino does this. That's how I see film. I always like use music that I have in my head and I put it into film.
You think that's how you did the Raging Bull?
Possibly. I don't know. Because Raging Bull is also like a similar kind of story in a way, right?
Exactly. But it doesn't have as much either montage or the...
A little montage.
Yeah, there's some, I guess, and narration and stuff.
But he treats it kind of similar. I actually don't love Raging Bull. Like
Yeah,
everybody
I
loves.
remember that.
Everybody
that.
loves Raging Bull. I'm
I'm not crazy about it, but I recognize it.
I don't know.
I don't think it's like greatest boxing movie ever or anything like that.
No, not at all. I don't know what the fascination with Raging Bull is. I don't get it.
It doesn't hit me, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't hit me. It doesn't affect me that much.
It feels to me too much of too Aronofsky, if you will.
All right, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a stretch. It's a stretch.
I understand
comment.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know what I see it as like when I watch Mean Streets.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thinks of Scorsese and Spielberg and all these people like they're fucking gods, right? Okay, they're thesis filmmakers just like us who are making films. In Mean Streets, there's this like really awkward fucking moment where De Niro's at the bar and they play Jumping Jack Flash.
Mm-hmm.
And it zooms across it doesn't zoom, it tracks across the bar. And it means fucking nothing. It doesn't mean anything. Like, watch it again. Like, what the fuck does it mean? He's like thinking, like, what is he thinking about? He's not this introspective fucking guy, Harvey Keitel. He's just like, he's like, shit, I don't like De Niro. Like, what the fuck is he thinking about? And then they do it again. But they use like cream instead of Jumping Jack Flash in Goodfellas. And it like works this time because he's plotting murder.
Right.
But it's not like this deep shit. Like, that's it. That's all he's doing. So I think about that with Scorsese, and I'm just like, okay, he's not a fucking god. He's a guy who makes movies. Like, this is what he thinks about. He's not like anything special.
Okay, like
So,
that's okay.
When I look at Raging Bull, I see it as a precursor almost to Goodfellas because it's almost 10 years. I think Raging Bull came out in 1980,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then like 1990 comes out Goodfellas. And there's a lot of similarities in terms of the structure of the film.
Yeah, he kind of doesn't really learn anything. He doesn't really change.
Yeah, he's kind of a scumbag who ends up
Right.
like at the last end of his life.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's good. To comment on what you said, like he's just like a human making films, and that's a big conversation that you hear a lot. But a lot of these 70s filmmakers, New Hollywood filmmakers, we're all obsessed with. Start from Spielberg to Carpenter and to Friedkin, and a lot of them is Coppola, Scorsese,
Scorsese, yeah.
Bogdanovich, all these guys. Basically, these guys were in the right time, in a right place, and got lucky. And they
Yes.
kind of took over.
That's how New Hollywood
the
happened.
cinema.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There was like young guys younger than us. They were
Right.
younger than us almost. And they
were given chance because the old studio films
Right.
were not popular anymore.
because the code ended. Once the code ended,
Explain the code.
the code was like a conservative code of like you can't show violence and crime and you can't show drugs and nudity and you can't show all this stuff.
Contemporary music.
Right. Once the code ended, studios were very liberal about how they used filmmakers.
So
And
they're
they
giving chances to it.
Right. And they got all these new guys. So we look at like Coppola, Scorsese, John Carpenter, Friedkin, Lucas as these like mavericks, but they were just at the right moment,
Yeah.
and they made these films. I mean, there's more, there's not just those guys, but there's more. And they made these films that we remember, but it wasn't like they were necessarily like everybody before they wanted to make these films before, like people always want to make these films, but they just were at the right moment to do it. That was it. Not discrediting them.
No, not discredit. You have to be
But they're human
talent
beings.
and all that stuff has to come with it.
Right.
Of course, they're very talented, very extraordinary.
They had an
pupils
opportunity to
of
do
cinema.
something that a lot of people would have done, at the time. And they
You
took
like?
it.
Let's talk about One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, Cuckoo's Nest is like one of the best films of the 70s and one of the best films ever made.
I think it's one of my favorite films ever.
Yeah. I think you're on the money picking that movie.
Did you read the book? I think you read.
I did read the book.
Yeah. Another example of like
I think the movie's better.
the movie's better, right?
Yeah.
And
The book-
it has more significance in like cinema also than like the book.
The book, the movie was more important than the book. It was one of those kind of things. Not like Harry Potter, where like Harry Potter kind of influenced both. The book is like from Chief's perspective.
Right.
So it's like a little different.
The cinematographer for the film of One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest, there's listed 2 cinematographers, and one of them is Haskell Wexler, which is unfortunately left us a couple years ago. Great cinematographer, 2 times Academy Award winner, one of like few cinematographers that won like multiple Academy Awards, and he was kicked out from the set. He was actually fired, which is quite insane. And I always feel like there's few cinematographers that kind of had that director's mind that were a little too. Yeah, they weren't tools, Oh, yeah. I don't want to say that most, of them are, but like, they were all tools. No. But he was a very outspoken one, and Milos Forman, the guy who's, a
director,
auteur or whatever, very kind of Kubrickish, very knows exactly what he wants. They didn't get along. Funny enough, I got to kind of like, study Haskell Wexler from one of my professors in BMCC, Phil Grice. And Phil was one of the greatest guys ever. He often joked that Phil Light was named after him, which I was, found that very amusing. But he shot some cool things. Like Phil Grice had a career. He's a dinosaur of his own. And he would talk about Haskell Wexler was his professor at what's the California UCLA, yeah, USC or UCLA, one of those. I think both of them have film schools, but one of them. And it's kind of fascinating that back in the days, like even 50 years ago, you had professors like Haskell Wexler, and like they would have guests like Orson Welles. Yeah. It's kind of like I can't wrap my head around that.
That's like how we met Bobbitt,
Yeah, I guess that's how it is. But like Sean Bobbitt is still like not Orson Welles,
Well, maybe Orson Welles wasn't Orson Welles.
Well, who knows? Maybe you're right. I mean, Citizen Kane wasn't really accepted neither. It was like one of those.
It was like, movies, this guy Orson Welles is coming.
Yeah. But I always found like fascinating the story of Haskell Wexler. He was he would always say. When they ask him about the films he has shot and the directors he worked with, he would always say that there hasn't been a movie I worked on that I couldn't have directed myself, directed better. There was that kind of guy. And there's even a documentary on him that was shot by his son. And his son does like this exploration of this artist who kind of abandoned his son and wife for the sake of art. Right, and that's what makes it like deep, because he's his son and he makes this documentary about his father. He has nothing else to do because his whole life, the son's life, was kind of overshadowed by his dad, and his dad is absolutely okay with that. Wow. And that's like kind of tough pill to swallow. And they separated with his wife. His wife was an artist; she was a painter. Who was also overshadowed by Haskell, who was absolutely fine with all of this. That was the norm, the default state in the family, and he was running the show, and he was the kind of guy who would get fired from One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest. Like there's something to it, and I always kind of found that interesting. And that's another question that maybe we can like touch upon is a lot of times we look at these greats that had miserable kind of lives. They had like sacrificing everything for the sake of art. And I'm going to use quotes like, because what is art? That's a whole another conversation.
I'll tell you one little funny anecdote of this is nobody has filed bankruptcy more than Francis Ford Coppola.
Well, yeah, exactly.
That's one. Coppola, who's made some of the most important films of all time, has notoriously been without money and without resource, you know? So it's pretty funny that a guy who, like, almost like a Orson Welles, right? Like, he's like, 30 years plus, and then he's Orson Welles, right? So he makes the greatest films of all time, and then he still can't get the money to make the films he wants to make, and he has to make fucking Godfather Part 3, at a discount. So
Which he made just basically to get some money.
basically to get money. Yeah. Basically to get money. And he comes off of when did he make Dracula?
92.
Okay, so he makes like Godfather in 90, to get money to make his next film, right? And it's like his next film is like fucking Dracula.
Yeah.
It's like he's making like huge movies. Like, what is he doing? Like, nobody, like, unless he's just a terrible businessman who has like a vice. This is the guy who made The Godfather. All of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but it's just like a funny little, like, that guy needed help. Like, he had to do like gun for hire shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a weird thing. Maybe he's just a terrible businessman. I don't know. He probably should have just invested a little bit.
Well, what does it mean then to do it for the sake of art? Is there like a higher, like, to be an artist, like, we become kind of choked up when we can't express ourselves, right? Through that medium, whatever that is, film or art or music, or and we are ready to give a lot away. And people who don't do it and choose kind of like family and friends, are they destined not to make it?
I think about like Werner Herzog, right? A guy who's willing to put a ship on a mountain and spend all this money to make a movie. And he still to this day says, like, looking into the camera lens is like looking death in the face. I'm really not trying to be artistic when I answer this question. I'm just saying it like that. When I hear that, and this guy is like 70-something years old, I think it's just the part of our brain, like, we're using, I guess, the right part of our brain. It's the right side instead of the left side. I have no clue. The left side, I think, is like more like autonomous. I might be saying that wrong. I'm sorry. Whatever. You know what I mean. We're never going to be satisfied. And we always have more to say. And maybe we're not using the mathematical part of our brain that gives us money, but we have something to say. The one thing I could take away from that is that the Friedkins and the Herzogs and the Coppolas of this world have left a bigger imprint. We are all talking about them. So maybe that's the price you pay for having to say something, is that you're never going to be satisfied. Because if you're Coppola, right? You made the fucking Godfather and you don't have the money to make another one. I mean, come on. Like, how stupid is that? Like, you made The Godfather. It's the Godfather of movies. And you're fucking strapped for cash. Either way, it means that, like, there's something wrong with you, right? Because, like, either you made a bad deal and like this just sucks as a business, or you don't know how to manage your life, and like there's always something else you want to make and you don't know how to achieve that. So maybe it just means we're not going to really be satisfied. Maybe there's always something we're going to want to do. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no end to that. Maybe Beethoven wanted to still make music. It wasn't like a moment where he's like, I did enough. You know, I did it. Whatever. You know, only like you hear stories about politicians. You know, you hear like what's his name? Winston Churchill. I think he said like, I'm done with it all. Like his last words were like, I'm done. Like, you know, I'm tired of it all. Something like that. I mean, whatever. Somebody correct me, but maybe as an artist, you're just like, I still want to make some more. Like I got some ideas. You know, I got some stories. You know, and we got to the point with Scorsese's career. He's almost like fucking 80, and he's making eulogies to his stories. Like he's got to the point where he could still cognitively process his own canon, and he's making The Irishman, which is like a fucking eulogy to his own movies. Like, so he still has something to say. Like he's not just like, well, I did it, whatever. Like, I'll just like hang out and have my money.
That's what John Carpenter did.
Maybe he had enough. I don't know.
Sounds like he did.
Maybe he wants to play Call of Duty.
That's what he does. He's like a big gamer, apparently.
Maybe he just doesn't like the industry, though.
Yeah.
Maybe
that
that's
might
it.
be it.
Maybe that's it. You know, maybe he just had maybe it's like for a different reason. You know, maybe he was just burnt out, which doesn't discredit what I just said. It just means he's a human fucking being, and like you get burnt out, you just be like, I'm done. I don't want to deal with this shit anymore. Like, you know, as a filmmaker, as an artist, it doesn't mean that's the only thing you like. Like a painter likes music, right? You know, a painter could like ballet. A filmmaker could like football, right? So a filmmaker could be a carpenter. Maybe Carpenter was just like, I had enough of this fucking industry. And it could burn you out. I mean, it could fuck you up. Any business industry could be like, I'm done. And artists aren't made for it.
No.
They're really not made for it. If you could somehow combine artistry with business, you were like fucking golden. But a lot of us are just not made for it. We're not made for the 9 to 5. We're not made for the hours of it. Literally to the point, like we're not made for it. I always laugh when I think of like my high school teacher says like the same part that does art does math. The same part of your brain that does art does math. And I always laugh. I'm like, I'm terrible at math. What are you talking about? I don't know anybody who's good at math. Except people who aren't artists. What are you talking about? So maybe Carpenter's just burnt out. I mean, when I look at him, I don't look at a guy who like necessarily doesn't have something to say. He just looks like a guy who's just like, I'm tired. I mean, really look at him. Maybe he doesn't have something to say. I'm not trying to take that away. I'm just saying, like, you know, even John Carpenter, one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, could be like, I'm fucking done, man. Like, fuck this. Whatever. Sure, I'll produce the new Halloween movie. Whatever. Can I get money for it? To buy the PS5? So I can play Call of Duty.
I mean, that sounds like a pretty good read on John Carpenter, honestly. I feel like the industry definitely like a ragdolled him a little bit. And it was definitely done in like mid 80s, and even by the late 80s he was already making films for like a small companies,
right.
like even They Live and Prince of Darkness and like
right.
whatever the
so maybe he just had enough.
yeah.
And he might have more to say, but he's like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Which is an unfortunate end, but maybe it still goes what I was saying. Like, you really, you know, it's the life of, you know, you're not satisfied.
I have a couple last questions for you. Well, not that I had questions, we just kind of talked, but I want to get your thoughts on something. We've known each other now for 9 years, which is kind of crazy. It's going to be 10 years in another year.
I thought it was 10 years already.
We met each other in 2012.
Okay.
September,
You're right.
October.
You're right.
And the year Hurricane Sandy happened. So it's been 9 years now. And, you know, it was great years of our friendship. You helped me a lot to adapt to this place of this foreign land. I want to get your opinion. What do you think of Azeri people, man? At this point, you've met quite a few. What's your read on
us?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because, like, you know, I'm an all-American guy, right? I'm all-American, right? And I've had a lot of friends who are different cultures. I've had relationships with people who are from different cultures. In the best way possible, I don't think anything about Azeri people. Not in a negative way. You're just the same as me. When you tell me, I played Mortal Kombat, I played Tekken, I did all these things, I wanted to play metal music. It just makes me feel like we're all the same. So when people are like, you don't respect tradition, you're American. It's like, fuck you. Just shut the fuck up. I have my own tradition. It's all the same shit. I look at you exactly the same as me. No different at all. You're my brother. I don't think of you in any different way. I don't think of you as a foreigner. I don't think of I say Azerbaijani people. Like they're just it's just all this. I mean, I'm trying to say this in the most nice way. Take this the right way. That's what I mean. I just think you're people like anybody else who like everybody else, were fucked by governments and by the system. And just like everybody else. You know? I don't think it'd be any different.
You know about our situation and our like history of war and after Soviet Union collapsed?
Yeah.
I feel like we've had a lot of those conversations. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about Nagorno-Karabakh
Karabakh.
region.
Yeah.
And we've had war a year ago
Right.
where we fought our lands,
Yes.
got them back.
Yes.
You've heard a lot
Right.
about, my friends and some of people we know,
Yeah.
common friends that we've been talking about and making a film.
Right.
How do you think we tell a story about Karabakh? What's the right approach?
I think you shouldn't tell it directly. You know, I think that every single fucking person who wants to make a movie is going to try to tell it directly, and I think it's going to get trite, and it's going to, by being trite, it's going to fall into the category of nobody's going to remember it. Nobody's going to care. But if you can make it something interesting, if you can make it a comedy, if you can make it a horror film, if you can make it something that calls attention to it, and I'm not one of those people that's like, you got to make it different. I don't care about that. I'm just saying, really look in yourself and think about it like, okay, like this is war. Every single fucking country has had war. Okay? We all want land. We all want these things. But what's my take on it? Like, how do I literally see it? I think it's more interesting, honestly, to get a personal perspective. Because that's what makes film. Instead of trying to look at it like from like, let's make this like a documentary, like for everybody to see, or like let's see the horrors of war. Nobody fucking cares anymore. Honestly, it's upsetting. And from an American standpoint, nobody cares. Like we've all had our own war. I think you should try to take a perspective of how you view it. If it's ironic, if it's postmodern, if it's genuine, however you fucking take it. If it's comedic, if it's horrific. Just make a story that's about a human being during this period of, the Karabakh conflict, and focus on that. Just focus on that. Focus on the human element, and then set it during that, and just show us what it's like during that. But make that like the backdrop, because a war picture gets lost in translation. I mean, think about this, like. World War II is like almost 75, 80 years ago, right? Like it's so long now. World War II was like the war to end wars. Like they called the First World War the Great War, but Second World War was really the big war. And now every single film just shows World War II. We're like desensitized to it. Make something unique about World War II. And there's films to look to that, there's contemporary films, Jojo Rabbit, Life is Beautiful. There's films. make something with your own personality. And if you really want to talk about Karabakh, set it in Karabakh and explain, you know, have that as the backdrop and you could be historically accurate. But if you really just want to make a hardcore documentary, just be a documentary filmmaker. Because like if you make something straightforward, nobody's gonna care. That's how I feel as an American. Nobody's gonna fucking care. You know, just be as honest as you can, and as honest to yourself. I think that's what we're missing in film. Just be as honest to yourself. You know, I think that'll really like captivate audiences. That's what I would watch. If you show me a film about Karabakh, I'd be like, all right, it's another fucking, you know, thing about the Middle East that nobody cares about. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to say that in a mean way. But if you make something a little more yourself, I think it would captivate people.
So basically, have a voice as a filmmaker.
Yeah, have a
work
voice.
possibly in the genre.
Yeah, and don't try hard to have a voice. Just try to be yourself. Have a voice. Just if you think something's funny, like, you know, set your story as funny. Like, you know, think life is terrible. There's a lot of bad shit. Just be honest about it. And if something's funny, make it funny. You know, don't try that hard. If you try hard to be really fucking dramatic and show war, nobody's gonna care.
They're trying to make about like 100 movies now.
I know,
Every other person.
That's
is
what I
trying to
figured.
make a film
That's why I'm trying to say
about
this
Karabakh.
as honest as I possibly can, because you're gonna get 100 fucking films in Azerbaijani film festivals. Nobody's gonna care. It's gonna be the same fucking film. Make your own comedy during this. Make your own horror film during this. Make your own whatever. Use this as a fucking opportunity. I'm sorry to say that once again. It's a terrible thing. People died. Make your own voice. This is a proper time to understand how you see things, how you view things. Don't try to find it. Just do it how you see it. That's it. And if you see it as directly as a fucking just a war film, I don't think it's going to take off, honestly, because it's going to just be a war film. You know, I just think it's going to be kind of boring, but not boring. I'm trying not to be
I know
unsensitive,
what you mean.
but I'm just like, it's going to get lost in the shuffle. Right? You know, it's going to get lost in the shuffle. Whenever something contemporary happens, people are going to try to jump on that. So, especially as an outsider, how would it get to me? You know, how would that enter my realm? You got to make something a little more you, which is like kind of easier in a way. Like it's not trying hard. Just make it like I just told you before, Azeri people are just like me. There's people there who like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and like Goodfellas, and they're all the same people. There's nothing different. I look at them as the exact same people. I don't look at them like there's primitive people there. Or like I'm American, I'm better. They're the same fucking people. You have the same sentiments. There's probably an Anthony Glynn over there. Just make the fucking Karabakh film the same fucking way. How I would. Just fucking do it. It's probably cheaper. Just make it over there.
Watch Silver Lining Playbook and make a Karabakh movie.
There you go. Make a love story during Karabakh. And there's a guy in fucking Georgia?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Armenia,
I'm sorry. See, I'm American. I don't fucking know what's going on. They're Armenia. And they love each other. Sounds simple. Make the fucking movie. Try.
Well, that's like a no-no. No, that's like a. It's actually, you know, quite disturbing.
Well,
like
make it for you.
Yeah, I know. I understand. Yeah, you're right. That's like, you know, when you say it should be easier, but this is what that means. What are you saying is the person making it has to actually something to say about it. But the problem is that a lot of movies that are made is people jumping on this opportunity without without having anything to say about the war.
That's a bigger discussion. I'll get to that if you want me to say anything about that. My point
if you have something to say.
My
sure.
thing is that you have nothing to say.
Yeah.
I realized it took me a few years to realize I don't have a lot to say about certain things. Maybe I shouldn't fucking talk about them.
Yeah.
And maybe it's embarrassing for me to say that to some of my friends and some of my contemporaries, but I got nothing to say. What do you want me to say? I got nothing new to say. And not that you should strive for something new to say, but I got nothing to say.
Let's wrap this shit up. Let's go get some food.
Are you going to ask me like what love means or anything like that?
I should probably, right? Well, here's what I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna ask you to do a Vito Corleone impersonation.
Just like on the spot like that.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried about this Salazzo fella. I want you to find what he's got on his fingernails. Go to the details and make them think you're not too happy with his family and find out what you can.
That was excellent. You also like video games. What's your favorite video game of all time?
My favorite video game of all time, Metal Gear Solid 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But my favorite character is Arthur Morgan in
Really?
in Red Dead Redemption.
That's your favorite character
He's
of all time?
my favorite character in any video game. He's the best character in any video game.
Really?
Yeah, Arthur
Why?
Morgan. Yep. He's a character going through an existential crisis. I've never seen that in a video game. I've seen it in movies, but I've never seen it in a video game. I'm not trying to compare him to movie characters. Just in terms of games, he's better than any character. Better than Mario. Better than Sonic. Better than Captain Falcon. Like, he's just better. He's the best video game character of all time. Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2. He's the best character. He's so raw, and he's motion captured by his own actor, which is a newer thing. They're not all motion captured by their own actors. And it's just the most raw, brutal performance in a story that is raw and brutal, and I just think he's the best. I don't know. I'm giving a very uneducated answer to this question.
But we're a little fatigued.
I'm very fatigued. We've been doing this for about 4 hours, but yeah, I mean, he's the best. He's just, I've never seen a character as honest and realistic as Arthur Morgan in a video game, and he's the best character, and he would rival movie characters for me.
Yeah, I feel like video games have definitely bumped up in their like storytelling and
Yeah.
actually that's definitely like opening up new doors to new conversations. But let's just try to touch a little bit upon it. I saw this video article, like video essay, on video games that put storytelling to the next level.
Yeah.
And it really talks about kind of like a video game like GTA or Red Dead Redemption. Like they work not within the medium of video games per se.
Right.
They really work as like film. They try to implement the film medium into the video game.
I think
So-
it would be a good show. Like
Right.
Red Dead Redemption,
Exactly.
Redemption would be a
Yeah.
good show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he talks about video games like BioShock,
Right.
that really kind of implement the idea of they draw that metaphor of you being the character who plays
Yes.
And,
yes. When they break the
fourth wall.
fourth wall, but they also they match like form and content.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So
and that's
like,
a really
like
tough
BioShock
thing to
does
do.
that.
BioShock does
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And another one is MGS2, I think, does it.
MGS2 does it as well.
Right.
Yep.
And they talk about like very intensely about character of Raiden.
Yeah.
And how you are forced to play with a more
Well,
boring version.
Exactly. Like
of,
you think you're playing as Solid Snake, but
Right.
you're really playing as Raiden, and you're kind of like upset about that. But then Raiden is also kind of bitchy about that as
Right,
well. So it's kind of
exactly.
like the same thing, and you have to like emulate Solid Snake's mission. So it's kind of like the same
Yeah.
game. You're playing the same game
Right.
kind of
There's
twice.
basically like a bigger message and
Right.
bigger
Right.
kind of point to the soul.
It's like the meme. That's what that game is about. The theme is the meme. Like
Mm-hmm.
understanding the image of something and like the importance of it, and like kind of emulating it, and like
Right.
like telling other people about that image. And it's like Solid Snake's mission and the importance of that. And you're not really you. You're just kind of like a telegraph of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was kind of interesting to see, and like video games have a lot more to say, I think, and kind of they have a lot more opportunities, and they're very still early on in their kind of development, and I'm curious to just see they're getting more and more recognition.
I'll tell you one thing.
Yeah.
It's the best media, film, video game, show, whatever it is. It compromises you in some way. When it compromises your own values, It makes you a participant in the media. When it does that, it's achieved its goal immensely. Even if it's only a few episodes in, a few missions in, a few hours in, an hour into the film. When it compromises you, you are now a participant in the media. And it's an amazing thing that if you really are aware of it, like we are, like when we're participating in something, it's fascinating. That's what really captivates me when like one of my own values are compromised, or like even if they aren't compromised, but like if a character is killing somebody or doing something like for let's say a good reason, right? Like a quote unquote good reason. That's captivating. That's really powerful. And if you could put that in a media that you are participating in, literally, as a video game or a show that you're watching all the time with your significant other, that's powerful. I think it's really important. And I think we need more of that. You know, to go back to things we were talking about earlier, we need more material that is willing to compromise values, especially in this time, especially in a time when we're very like pushing kind of social values, which is fine, but that's captivating media to me.
I agree.
I agree.
All right, man. That was quite fun. This is like a movie special.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun, and you just kind of like had a lot of, very good time talking to you about all this stuff. Let's wrap it up for today, but I think we have so many more of these.
I had a lot of fun. I gotta tell you, I really did. Yeah. I was like, I have nothing interesting to say, but maybe I do.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You
I don't
do.
know. I'm just happy we had this time.
It's like reminding me of like our good times.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'd have after class or something.
Yeah.
Just kind of excited and just walk around, go get Chinese food, and just kind of talk about this stuff.
Go get some Lenny and John's.
Go get some Lenny and John's. Yeah, that's a good place.
I enjoyed it. I did. Yeah.
We'll do that. Right
I'll come back.
this.
I'll be like your Joey Diaz. I'll show up.
Yeah. I mean, thanks so much, man. Seriously, this was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
For
I
sure.
appreciate it. I really like your show and what you're doing.
Thank you, man. Just next step is for you to learn some Russian.
It's the next step. It's the logical next step of my character arc.
Give me some soy.
Okay, stop.
Come on, man. People are gonna love this.
I don't know. It's embarrassing.
It's not embarrassing, man. This is gold. Pimienta's here. All right.
Grupa Krovi is a great song.
Yeah, Grupa Krovi.